You know, all of this number.
Number 3. Guys, let's thank Xavier for the free snacks.
Yeah.
Yeah. We heard you the first 3 times you gave it to us.
Okay, real quick, the elections committee will be, brought about just, based on was an missing overlap, due to the vacating of.
Can we change this video?
Resigning, sorry, just give me a moment. Now that we're back, the Stephanie Arroyo tendered her resignation, as did Claudia Perez. We have lost our treasurer and assistant treasurer, and as mentioned before we lost audio, we will be bringing back the elections committee to have a special election to fill the remainder of the term of all 3 roles. Treasurer, assistant treasurer, and assistant secretary for the bylaws. Okay, the next announcement is, real quick, is that I had the opportunity to briefly, like I said, I watched the meeting, listened to some of the parts last month. Heard from several of you, and coming off of borough board today, there are several community boards who are undertaking city charter recommendations, because there's the mayor's and there's the speaker's city charter review. They are also using that in tandem as they assess some of their bylaws as well. And due to the feedback, and I was very much open a little over a year ago when people were pitching to the bylaws committee. And I'm extremely open now, because I think it's important for us to have a dialogue to continue to improve, but I will be assembling a bylaws and charter committee. So they will be doing both, because there's a movement amongst community boards to actually push against the term limits and actually ask and advocate for them to actually extend them further versus what we tend to April. Whether it is successful or not, it's worth the battle, just like when you take on Department of Transportation or any of the others. So those, I will make an announcement if full board those interested in being part of that. Please send me an email, and the work you guys did, you know, I really applaud that, and I really appreciate us all banding together as one unit. So thank you very much, and I want to say thank you to everyone who's done so much heavy lifting, and I look forward to seeing that move forward in that committee. So thank you very much. Those are 2 announcements. And with that, we will now, if there are no other announcements, we will now move on to our presentations. Oh, yes, go ahead, Ashley.
Tomorrow at Lexington Academy, shows at Lexington Academy, they're doing a the teams are running a healthy dating project. So you've seen the gun violence projects that they've done. They're gonna be doing a healing day thing, and they're gonna do an art activity similar to the murals they have done. So that 131 East 104th Street. 6 p.m.
Thank you very much. Okay, with that and no more announcements, thank you. We'll now go into our presentations, discussions. We have a workshop on conducting effective meetings and processes for recording, approving, and storing meeting minutes. Benjamin Solitaire from NY Civic Engagement Commission will be here.
Diane Duncan was on doing the presentation.
Wonderful. All right, we have give them the floor.
Diana.
Hello. Hi, good evening, everyone. Let me just pull up my screen. Bear with me a moment, please. Good evening, everyone. My name is Diana Duncan. I am a professional registered parliamentarian from the National Association of Parliamentarians. Tonight's training will be on mastering effective meetings, tools for productive and engaging meeting facilitation. A little bit about me. As I mentioned, I'm a professional registered parliamentarian, and I became interested in parliamentary procedure by being actively engaged. Yes,
Your screen is not sharing the slide deck.
it's not, okay, it's showing share here.
You may need to select that window when you share, because sometimes with Zoom, you have this, you can select multiple windows.
Okay, because it's showing that I'm sharing, hold on, show webinar.
Because what we're seeing right now is your folder that says CEC
Oh,
2025.
okay, okay, give me a second. Thank you.
No, thank
I don't
you.
want to do more forward. You ain't even personally present.
Can you see it now?
Yes,
Yes,
Okay, all right. Let me
although you
start
might
from-
want to extend it larger because we could see your panel on the side. Yes, thank you.
Okay, I was fixing it.
thank
Okay,
you.
so, I was actively engaged in my son's Head Start Policy Council, and there were members that were mentioning that we need to follow Robert's Rules of Order, but no one knew what it was. So I went to study it, and became president, and then I started teaching other parent-led organizations about it. In addition to serving on various local boards, I'm also a charter member of I'm president of the Greater Parliamentarians of Brooklyn, New York Electronic Unit, which is affiliated with the National Association of Parliamentarians. So I will give you more information at the end, in case anyone is interested in further studying parliamentary procedure and learning more. So reference and disclaimer, the information contained in these slides are as pertain to the current edition of Robert's Rules of Order, currently on the 12th edition, and please refer to your state law, corporate charter, and bylaws. So this evening, we will have an introduction to Robert's Rules of Order, go over meeting governance, the role of the chair, roles of members, debate decorum, quorum and its importance, motion processes, types of motions, and we will touch on minutes in here as well, and how to implement Robert's Rules of Order by training other members. So who is Robert and why does he have so many rules? Robert, Henry Martin Roberts. Let me just move this out of the way, I'm sorry. Can you see me or do you see my screen? Because I think I moved the wrong thing.
You can see your screen and you.
Okay, hold on, let me go back. That's why you shouldn't touch anything. So Henry Martin Robert was an engineering officer in the Army. He was active in his church and civic organizations. And one day he was asked to preside over a meeting and didn't know how. And that meeting lasted 36 hours. And it was supposed to be based on parliamentary law. So after that, he vowed that he would never sit through a meeting that long again. So he prepared a few rules that were about 16 pages long. Soon after he realized that it didn't suit the needs of ordinary societies, only legislative bodies. So he developed in 1876 a new kind of parliamentary manual, which could also be used for ordinary societies and not just in Congress. And this is what we have today, which is the 12th edition of Robert's Rules of Order. What is parliamentary procedure and why is it important? It's a set of rules based on parliamentary law for conduct at meetings that allows everyone to have a voice and be heard, and it allows everyone to make group decisions without confusion. It's used by many boards, clubs, social, nonprofit, civic, community organizations, and deliberative and legislative bodies. There are two versions. There's a brief overview of the larger book of Robert's Rules of Order. This is the 12th edition. It's a comprehensive guide that many use if they're going to like a meeting and they're not particularly chairing it. And it allows newcomers to be able to participate in any meeting effectively. The larger book, the full version, which is Robert's Rules of Order 12th edition, it gives more detailed guidelines and provides more rules and goes into more specificity. And it also gives examples and nuances for procedural items that you may encounter that you may need to go back into to reference. So meeting governance. So typically your order of business is your agenda. This is just a sample. You will call to order. We'll have roll call to determine quorum. You will have your approval of minutes. Also on agendas, you will have the adoption of the agenda before the approval of minutes. You will have the reading of the reports, unfinished business, new business, announcements, and adjournments. And just to let you know that under Robert's Rules of Order is considered unfinished business. I've seen on some agendas where it's considered old business, but that's inaccurate. It should be unfinished business. And there was one community board meeting I went to and it had unfinished business and old business. And I asked, why are they both on there? So they couldn't explain to me why. Your governing documents are the New York State law, your corporate charter or your New York State charter. Your bylaw is a constitution. It should not conflict with anything in the New York, any of your law, New York State law or corporate charter. Oops, let me go back. Then you have your rules of order. You have your special rules, your parliamentary authority, which is Robert's Rules of Order. Then you have your standing rules, which is similarly to your ground rules, which you showed at the beginning of the meeting, which lets members know how they should conduct themselves in your meetings. So for example, if you would like to limit debate to like 5 minutes per member, you can include that in your standing rules, or in your case, your ground rules. And custom is anything that's not written in your parliamentary, in your bylaws or your special rules, and it's something that anyone has been doing forever and it just becomes custom. But if there's anything in your bylaws or corporate charter or your law, it falls by the, or standing rules, it falls by the wayside. So it doesn't take precedence. Your standing rules, which I explained, it relates to the details of the administration of your organization rather than parliamentary procedure, and it can be adopted or changed upon the same conditions as any ordinary act of the society. Normally, standing rules, you can amend them at any time, but it may be suspended by majority vote. And it remains in effect until rescinded or amended. And they can be adopted by majority vote without previous notice if it does not conflict or amend an existing rule of your organization. Meeting minutes and record keeping. This is very important for your meetings. Accurate documentations of motions and decisions made. And you also review and approve them at your next meeting. Many secretaries or note takers are under the impression that minutes should be a whole transcription of the meeting. It should only contain your motions, what passed, your roll call, so that you can have your quorum documented. Also a summary of your committee reports. But it shouldn't go into like a lengthy detail, and your minutes shouldn't be like 40 to 100 pages long. And best practice is to have them emailed to all members prior to the meeting. And I know that your community board, you have to keep your minutes on file for a certain amount of time, but it's also recommended in other organizations, they print them out and they bound their minutes because they're legal documents and they're signed by the secretary once they're approved. And if you so choose, you can have the president of your community board or to sign off on it as well, because they're legal documents and they're subject to FOIL, so you do have to keep accurate records. I know that we keep everything electronically now, but it's also good to keep a hard copy of your minutes in case something happens to it. And I know that you have specific rules. I know that Benjamin stated there's a workshop to let everyone know about record keeping, how long to keep them on file. I believe it's longer than 5 years. The role of the chairperson in your meetings. So the chair is responsible for setting the agenda. In most organizations, they work with the secretary. In your case, you work with your secretary and I believe your district manager to ensure that all necessary topics are covered. That way you make sure that anything that was postponed from the previous meeting is on the agenda, and if it needs to be made a special order, and also to make sure that there's an opportunity for members to to speak up and provide new business and also to add to the agenda as well. And it encourages participation. So the chair ensures that all participants have the opportunity to share their insights and contribute to the discussion. So they're like the conductor, so you say. So they make sure that no one is speaking out of time and all questions and inquiries should be directed to the chair, and there shouldn't be any speaking to each other directed. That way it will prevent other members from feeling as if though they're being disenfranchised. The chair is responsible, like I said, for guiding the meeting and ensuring that all participants adhere to the established norms and procedures, the standing rules. They also make sure that the meetings, you all are following your agenda items and the agenda items are covered. And for members, if you find that you are going off topic from your agenda, you can actually call for orders of the day to get the meeting back on track. And the chair also must actively prevent interruptions and maintain a respectful environment where everyone can express their views. Role of members. Encourage members to contribute actively, enhances the quality of discussions and enriches the decision-making process. And members are allowed to ask questions. If there's a motion that's put forth on the floor, there's an opportunity for debate. And if you need to ask a question for further inquiry, you can raise a point of, do a parliamentary inquiry if you need more information, or if something needs to be delved in more in depth, then you can refer to a committee to explore it more further instead of taking up too much time in your meetings, like 30 minutes going back and forth discussing something that can be taken care of by your committee. And it's also an opportunity to share different viewpoints that promotes a more comprehensive understanding of issues and encourages innovative solutions. And also as members, you should also know your state charter and be familiar with what's inside of your bylaws. It shouldn't be up to the chair to know exactly what's in the bylaws. Everyone should be able to know what's in your bylaws and in your corporate charter to make sure that everyone is following procedure. Debate decorum. Members should be respectful of the rules in order to maintain order. If each member only has 2 minutes to speak, then we ask that members adhere to that and please not speak over that time or cause further confusion by continuing to speak out of turn. Mindful behavior, members should be aware that their behavior creates a positive atmosphere for all participants. And speaking respectfully fosters collaboration and ensures everyone's voice is heard during discussions. That's why you direct all of your questions to the chair, and the chair can ask another member to respond to it. Like for instance, if you have a treasury report, if a member is asking how much money is available and they don't have that amount available, they can ask the treasurer to respond to that question. Or if you have a parliamentarian, if there's a parliamentary inquiry, then the parliamentarian on your board will be able to answer the question for you if it's raised by a member of your board. Debate must be relevant or germane to the conversation. Once you're recognized by the chair, and no interruption should be allowed. And speakers are limited to 2 to 3 minutes each. And if you want to limit that to like 1 minute, if you notice that everyone is like sharing a bit too much, then you can put in your ground rules or standing rules that members may speak limited to 1 minute each or what have you. And no one speaks twice until everyone has spoken. So it shouldn't be like one person being overbearing and, continuing to speak. And it's up to the chair to monitor that. Debate ends when there's no further discussion or if a member calls the question, which requires 2/3 vote to be adopted in the debate. And then the chair would move into putting the topic to vote, the motion to vote. And I spoke about quorum earlier. So quorum is defined as the minimum number of members necessary for a group to conduct its business. And this is important for your chairperson to monitor, to make sure that you have quorum at all times. It ensures that decisions are made during meetings are legitimate, because if you don't have quorum, then you can't continue with the vote and carry out legitimate business. And it requires a majority, and it also shows that you have a majority representation. And if a member notices that there isn't a quorum present, they may raise the point of order to the chairperson to like reevaluate to make sure that you have a quorum present, especially if you have larger meetings and larger board members. And especially during the holidays, people may not want to sit through a meeting forever, so they might try and tiptoe out. But you have to realize that in order for business to be moved ahead and not postponed to the next meeting and subsequent meetings, then they need to stay in order to maintain the quorum. Went over that. And like I mentioned, if a quorum is not present, the meeting may be postponed or decisions cannot be made legally. And a quorum can be confirmed through various methods. For community boards, you will use roll call. Many other organizations would use attendance sheets or electronic confirmations if they're in a virtual system. And implications of not meeting quorum, it renders any decisions made during the meeting invalid, causing potential legal and operational issues. It leads to confusion and miscommunication, because failing to achieve quorum can create confusion among members regarding the validity of discussed items, and a lack of quorum of the organization's perceived legitimacy and authority in decision-making processes. So it's very important that quorum is maintained. So the motion process is the introduction of new business. Main motions serve to introduce new business of topics of discussion within your meetings. It ensures that all relevant matters are addressed. And understanding main motions helps structure discussions effectively, allowing meetings to flow smoothly and remain focused on essential topics. And main motions guide the focus of the meeting, ensuring participants stay on topic and that decisions are made efficiently. So steps for making a motion. After obtaining and being assigned the floor, you say Madam Chair or Mr. Chair or Chair. A member makes a motion by saying, I move, not that I make a motion or I think we should do this, because that's not considered a motion. So make sure that when you're making a motion, say that I move. Another member seconds the motion, except if it comes from a committee report. If it comes from a committee report, it does not require a second, according to Robert's Rules of Order. The chairperson will state the question or the motion, and the members will debate on the motion. And then the chair puts the question to a vote. So you all do a roll call vote, and it's the chair's responsibility to announce the results of and the effect of the vote to the members. And then it's, the motion and the decision of the disposition of the motion is inputted into your minutes for record keeping. And you don't have to put in the minutes what was debated or anything else. I know some organizations, they put the member who seconded the motion is not really required in Robert's Rules of Order. And I see in a lot of minutes, they'll put that it was seconded by a member, but it's not really necessary. And at any time, a member may, during the motion process, they may choose to propose to amend a motion. Before it's put forth to debate, members can move to amend the motion as long as germane and it stay on topic to the motion. A member can also withdraw a motion to allow for further consideration or reconsideration of a topic. If they decide that they don't want the motion to proceed, the maker of the motion can withdraw the motion. Navigating the processes of amending and withdrawing motions helps to ensure that decisions reflects the group's intentions accurately. So there are types of motions. We won't get into them all this evening, but there are subsidiary motions that are used to modify or dispose of main motions, enhancing the meeting's decision-making process. Privilege motions address urgent matters that require immediate attention in the room, ensuring important issues are prioritized, and incidental motions are related to the rules of the meeting, helping to maintain order and procedure during discussions. And there are 13 ranking motions, and there are also different incidental motions, so that's a separate workshop, if you care to get more details on that. Handling disruptions in your meetings. Common disruptions in their causes. They're usually side conversations that can distract participations and disrupt the flow of discussions, leading to misunderstandings. That's why it's important that everyone pays attention in the meetings. Turn off the phones. It could be a ground rule that everyone turns off their phones or put it on silent so that it's not ringing during the meeting. And emotional outbursts can arise to stress or conflict, impacting the atmosphere and progress of the meeting. Techniques for maintaining order. Establishing clear expectations at the start of the meeting helps participants understand their roles and responsibilities. That's why it's great that you all have ground rules and standing rules. Using visual cues during meetings can aid in keeping participants engaged and focused to ensure a smooth flow of discussion. Addressing disruptions calmly and respectfully. A chair can politely ask a member if they're causing a disruption to remind them that there is a meeting in place. And if there's a member that's speaking out of turn, then the chair can call them to order. And calmly and respectfully addressing disruptions maintains order and encourages a positive atmosphere, allowing the meeting to proceed effectively. Role of the chair in addressing disruptions. The chair must be ready to intervene promptly when disruptions occur, ensuring that the meetings stay on track. And reminding members of rules. A key responsibility of the chair is to remind all members of the established rules to maintain order. Common pitfalls to avoid: ignoring proper procedures and just doing things out of order. It causes confusion, and then everyone thinks that, well, we've done it at the previous meeting, but it's not actually correct. If you let members speak out of turn all the time. Neglecting quorum and record keeping. Just make sure that we're not doing that. And allowing dominance by individuals, meaning you letting individuals speak out of turn or actually speaking when other people are speaking or speaking over their slated time. It's encouraged. You all are learning about Robert's Rules of Order to make sure that all of your members are trained. That way you don't have to fall into any misunderstandings in your meeting. It's important to understand the procedures, know your corporate charter, your bylaws, and it enhances effective meetings, and it encourages confidence in your members so they can participate effectively, so that they're not shy because they don't think that they know how to participate or how to make a motion or how to debate effectively. These are just some diverse training methods that are offered by the National Association of Parliamentarians. They have, we offer trainings to community boards and other organizations. And if you wish to learn more, they have on-demand trainings as well for different topics. And they also have opportunities for you to also become a member of the National Association of Parliamentarians. And if you wish to prefer to become a registered parliamentarian or professional registered parliamentarian, there are opportunities there as well. And it's important that you continue learning because, as you know, the Robert's Rules of Order, it changes, the edition changes like every 10 years. So it's great to stay up to date and keep abreast of what's going on. When you receive your handout, you'll have the attached resources where you can go onto the National Association of Parliamentarians. You can also look up Manhattan units. I have an electronic unit, so you don't have to be in any borough. You can join if you're in any borough or any state, any parts of the world. You can join that, and that information will be on here as well. So in conclusion, effective meeting management, understanding Robert's Rules of Order and your governing documents, will help you run your meetings more smoothly. Clarifying roles and responsibilities when you're within your meetings helps to ensure everyone contributes effectively to the decision-making process. And fostering a respectful atmosphere encourages open dialogue and enhances participation in discussions. And by adhering to established procedures, organizations can effectively reach their objectives and make informed decisions. So I'll open the floor up to questions.
Thank you very much, Diana. Are there any questions? Come on, it's gotta be in this one. Go ahead, Jess.
I just wanted to point out and maybe ask the question, because I guess I'm unclear. We're referring to Robert's Rules of Order generally, and it's actually referenced in our bylaws as an example. But you've mentioned, Diana, the other governing bodies or documents like charters. And I just wanted to clarify that we as a community board are subject to the city charter. And are there, I mean, I think Robert's Rules of Order, I think we just have to be careful to understand the difference there. If anyone can correct me if I'm wrong.
Okay, let me go back to that particular slide. It was the ranking order. So if anything, I'll clarify for you. So anything that's in Robert's Rules of Order, you would go to if it's not stated in your bylaws or in your corporate charter. So if there's anything that supersedes that, then Robert's Rules of Order falls by the wayside because it's a lower hierarchy. It's your parliamentary procedure, which is stated in your bylaws and is adopted once the organization has been, I guess when it was implemented, when community boards were implemented and someone was creating your bylaws, then you had to adopt your parliamentary authority as Robert's Rules of Order, even though there are many other parliamentary authorities. Let me just go back to that slide. So the ranking order of rules. So we have your law, your corporate charter, or your New York State charter, bylaws or constitution. So your bylaws shouldn't conflict with anything that's in the corporate charter or your state law. Your parliamentary authority is the next ranking document. So whatever is not in your bylaws or corporate charter, then you will refer to your parliamentary authority, which is Robert's Rules of Order. And it shouldn't conflict if it's something that is being said that conflicts with what's in your corporate charter or your bylaws, then you don't follow Robert's Rules of Order.
Thank you. I just wanted to make that clear. Thank you very much for clarifying.
Okay.
Any other questions? Yes, Michelle.
I have a quick question concerning quorum.
Yes.
Can you pull up that slide, please? As you
Hold
get
on,
to
it
this.
might be in the beginning, sorry. Oh, bear with me.
No worries.
No worries, we're here.
Here we go. Yes.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure, I don't know if it was actually stated. But, once quorum is met and discussion happens. And quorum is lost. What are the parliamentary, procedures? Thank you.
Well, if you lose,
Did you have that here, or did I miss that?
no, I mentioned that if you lose quorum, then you would have to postpone those matters to the next meeting because you don't have the legal number of members in order to make a decision to vote on the motion or whatever it is that you're doing. So if you lose quorum, you would either have to postpone your meeting.
Well, the part two was.
Postpone that motion to the next meeting.
the part two of that question was, do you need to have minutes for that particular meeting?
You should have minutes for all of your meetings. If you lose quorum, are you asking if it should be indicated in the minutes?
No, the question was answered. Thank you.
Thank you, Nelson.
So I think what we're asking is if there was quorum, right, and business was conducted. And then we lose quorum, I would assume, and maybe you can clarify that we would do meetings that are part of the meeting that was in quorum, and then when we lose quorum, we would note that a meeting was, and quorum was lost and meeting adjourned. Is that correct?
Correct.
Mhm.
Any other questions? Okay. Diana, thank you. I've attended many of your trainings with the parliamentarians in New York, and really want to thank you for giving your time here.
Mhm.
And thank you for clarifying about the superseding authorities of the state law, city charter, and the bylaws and the order, and clarifying that. So thank you for those questions, and for also clarifying on quorum and how we proceed with the business. I do appreciate it very much.
Thank you.
Right.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. So if there
All right,
weren't any other questions, thank you so much for having me. And I look forward to seeing you all again in some time or space. And I hope that you found this training useful. And please give your feedback, if any, send it to Mr. Benjamin Solitaire, and he'll relay it back to me, and you'll receive the slides from him by this week.
Wonderful, thank you. I'll be able to really appreciate that. And if you have any follow-up questions, can we email them to you?
Yes, if you have any follow-up questions or need further clarification, my email will be on the slide as well.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. Have a great evening.
You too, thank you.
Great, thank you, everyone. Next on the agenda is review the draft agenda for full board meeting. Turn your attention there. It's pretty standard, license and permits. Fairly standard, nothing here of major note, environment, open space, and parks you have. Again, is there anything you want to share about housing at all? No action items.
No,
You had one of the tours at Wagner, correct?
yeah, I mean, I guess I'll just say, they really want, well, the tenant leader, Diane, really wants, some kind of street light there, traffic light. It's like a three-way traffic intersection. This is something that's been going on for, years. There's a bunch of schools right there. You know, I'm told that it's a difficult thing. I don't understand how it's difficult, but they say it is. Apparently it's also difficult to get lights on our part of the Esplanade. And I'm gonna say one other thing. Lately, I just feel like, forget about the work the committee does, but like, we spend so much time here, like, talking about how we're supposed to be a board than actually talking about the issues. And it's like, that was a nice presentation, but I mean, I don't know why we did that. I don't know why we're continuing to talk about the same things. There's like a bunch of smart people at this table who are doing work. And it's like, I don't even know what we're doing that time. So that's all I have to say.
Thank you. All right, that sounds like a two-way street intersection, the likes of to be a potential budget request down the line, Nilsson, and then we'll just.
Then you're talking about 120?
Yeah, like Pleasant.
Right, and so, the multi-service center is right there, and one thing I can tell you that we've noticed too, when we discussed stuff with Wagner, is that, it's a small street, right? And then the cars go really fast.
Yeah.
So something that when you're working on what you're doing, maybe a speed bump.
Even that, and then you have like that two-way and nobody knows who's got the right. I mean, it should be the person making the right, but
Yes.
Nobody really
It's
knows.
very problematic.
I guess I'll go to
Michelle.
Can I ask you to take because this is what Raphael, the DOT wants, a picture of it,
Yeah, I live right there.
and
I'm shocked he needs
and
one.
then-
but, okay.
it's just the way.
I'll send You can tell him I'm shocked he needs it, but here it is.
That's a great
Thank you.
recommendation, thank you.
And-
License,
Yeah, thank you.
license and permits, it seems like we had a pretty straightforward meetings with, the agenda, anything else to add, other than? Environment, open space and parks, we had a.
Yes, we had, a presentation. And then we, made a motion by Connie Lee to provide a letter of support, for the proposed water table public art installation, on Pier 107, for the Warden Walk. The letter was, submitted to the New York City Public Design Commission. And I second the motion and it passed. We've also, if I may, we've also had a discussion like every week on, on the Earth Day conference, and I think it's looking more real every single week. So I am super excited, that we're gonna have so much. BioBus has confirmed, Con Edison has confirmed, a lot of organizations have confirmed that, like, my brain is hurting, but I am super excited. The only thing, I'm still in need of funds. If anyone, would like to donate their funds, I appreciate that. Other than that, also Civitas has, Civitas have, will be donating money, for the event to the town.
Yes,
Yeah,
yes.
I'm watching.
I know that there's no treasure, but this isn't the first time we did this event, so. What's the issue with the funding?
Yeah, go ahead.
Oh, okay. So, the Museo del Barrio said that they were going to be a couple of expenses, maybe 1,500 or so. Just because they have to hire like security, we're gonna utilize the whole terrace on that is open, and also the cafeteria for presentations and, tea time and learning about composting and all that.
Follow-up question.
Yeah, can I see the budget from last year versus this year to see what the differences are?
I could.
One time permits?
Yeah, I
Thank
could ask
you.
Angela if we could pull that up kindly.
Yes,
Yes,
there was
yeah.
no budget from the event last year.
Thank you.
The different committees just,
They got it done.
donated their funds to, pledge their funds to the effort.
Got it.
Jess,
Yeah, so last year and I think the years before, the funding primarily went to food, but also there was a small fee from the Museum of the City of New York, which I believe was $500, and I think we spent about $500 on the food. And I believe, and correct me if I'm wrong, that the Youth and Education and the Environment Open Space both commuted their funds for that. The difference being that if now we're changing locations, that El Museo is asking for more money than the Museum of the City of New York, which I think respectfully, we can push back on and show them that we only paid the Museum of the City of New York $500, because it's really just for the additional staff, I would think, and not for like the rental of the space, because we're a nonprofit, like.
would do that.
Yeah.
yes,
So, just to clarify, they're not asking, like, they're not forcing. They just said that whatever we can come up with. So if we
$500.
have $500, it will be $500.
Yeah.
How
So
about
it's not
zero?
like mandated to us,
So where $1,500 came from, I'm sorry.
No, so the $1,500 is the suggested,
Uh-huh.
if possible, we can come closer to that, but we're collecting whatever we can. That's all.
keep us posted on that conversation, see if they can meet us at the previous month by Museum of the City of New York. They're good, they're all both good partners. All right, anything else? That's it, thank you, Human Services.
We had, some good presentations this month. We had, meetings. So we had one from, so we had one from, Argis, I'm just off the top of my head here, one from Argis, the rehabilitation center. They got a bunch of money to renovate their space, and they had to come before us to talk about those changes that they're making. They were commissioned by Oasis to come before us and talk about those changes. Those changes are them renovating the space, making it a lot more just enhancing the space. 2025, they got a lot of money. They had room for 150 beds, but they were only servicing about 125 people anyway. So now they're cutting that number, their max will only be about 125. They've also discontinued their outpatient programming and will then do what they're doing in-house and their work with they'll only provide in-house services and they'll actually work with contractors to drive patients to places. So they want to take more of an inpatient approach. The other presentation, so they are requesting a letter of acknowledgement. And I still just made them wait the 30 days, even though we didn't need to for an acknowledgement because we know they were sitting before us. But it was a pretty crowded meeting. So I don't like to push people to vote when there's just a lot going on. So I wanted to give people that time. But the other presentation was from Power in the Shower. So Power in the Shower is an organization that is growing. It's in Connecticut and in the Bronx, and they're trying to bring it into Harlem. And what it is the brother has some vehicles. They're like trailer trucks that they literally turn into showers for people. And they go to certain locations and they allow homeless people or people who, I won't even say homeless people who need to take a shower to take a shower. They give them like a little cleanup kit afterward with its like brush, toothbrush, stuff like that. They also have supplies for women. Women are taking showers. So yeah, it's a really, really good, it's a very humanizing thing that they're doing for a lot of people. And it's not just the we were able to unpack it a little bit deeper. And also what came out of it is the dignity people are feeling with the ability to take showers, even though they may be dealing with houselessness or housing insecurity. So they also noted that as just something that was therapeutic for people. Sometimes, you got folks that are out there old and hurt, and that hot water is helpful for their aching body. They brought up things like that. So they don't pressure you about how long you're in the shower either. They do sanitize after every shower. Yeah, they were very, and the brother didn't say it, but I got the sense that he might have been homeless one time in his life, and he understood because his level of just like, tolerance, for folks, just it was clear. He didn't say it, but I could tell. So they're requesting a letter of support to be able to go for funding to expand their services to start bringing it to your home. Yeah, I think
I'll set question for you.
Yeah, so one, that sounds great. I'm sorry, I missed out. I'm gonna go back to the video. One, are they allowed to park anywhere? Do they get special permits from the city, if anything?
So they don't take up much, they usually park next to hydrants and they usually let the fire department know they're coming. So they usually help them to turn on the pump and, they work with the fire department if you will. They don't take up too much space on the street, but the car that they're using mobile now is not too big, but they do want to have something a lot longer. So, yeah. But a lot of those kind of questions were asked during the presentation, so forgive me, because I don't, but they did ask those, but it wasn't at the moment, what they're doing now wasn't a big thing. Because the vehicle's not too big. Yes.
Wonderful. Thank you for that.
Yes.
Anne Marie.
Did they reach out to you or you found them?
They reached out to us. They reached out to Marlene, and it's funny because Marlene was like, I don't know what this is, and stuff like that. So we was on when we was having our agenda meeting call, I went on the site and I was looking through and I was like, yeah, this look legit. So we was like, let's let him come in, and he gave a presentation, had good paraphernalia and everything. So yeah, it was pretty
Wonderful.
Yeah,
Great.
Yeah.
One more question, Michelle.
I just wanted you to reiterate, it's power
in the shop.
in the shop.
In the show.
In the.
Yes. I said yes.
Can't wait for you to present it at full board.
Thank you.
I know.
You did.
I'm sorry, I just wanted to be as informative to you all as possible.
Thank you very much.
You're doing a great job.
Youth education.
Alright, so we had there was only one presentation. We were gonna have another one from Not Another Child, but Devon Howell, he was not able to make it, so hopefully I'm gonna try to squeeze him in next month after. The one presentation we have was from Joseph Bertoni from One Green Apple, who Rosa did recommend him to us. Basically his service is from what we understood, an app for like parent communication about grades and stuff like that. However, throughout the presentation, committee kind of got the feel that it was very much the same as many other apps that we have within the schools. And so he was requesting a letter of support, so we're gonna do a little more research on the side and next month, bring it back up. It was, the main concern was, it was a lot of it is stuff that we have already. And just the interface of it, even if it wasn't intentionally, just as the people who were in the room do, like the 3 committee members who were in the room, we all work in schools and we know how harmful it could be, the type of like comparison. It was very much like comparing, basically the app like kind of compares a child to other kids in their class type thing, not exactly, however, it is not. It's a very murky waters, and even if the intentions are good, we gotta very much analyze if we wanna support something like that, or maybe if we do write a letter of support, maybe put a amendment of saying, hey, like a condition saying, hey, maybe this could be changed a little bit or something like that. Just one more note, we have been affected by all the resignations on the board, because I'm pretty sure like 50% of our committee's gone. However, the people who have been here have been the ones doing the work in the room, and I appreciate it, so, yeah.
Thank you, Asher. Yeah, we, as was stated earlier, we're going to get about 15 new appointments. We aren't the only one who's had the greatest amount of attrition. I think CB5 had close to 20 people. So it's like pretty significant. So thank you for raising that, Asher. Land use, Jason.
Informational purposes only.
Okay.
The only cross collaborations for parks, they've been notified about the museum. And for youth and education, there's a concern about the ECF project. Our current stock is busy, so I've been asked a few times about it from other members. So I think you guys gotta have a conversation with ECF. We could cross collaborate on that. And then that's pretty much it.
Great. And you have the the action item for the.
It'll be presented at full board.
Yeah, for land use applications. Yes, Asher.
Could what you just mentioned be sent to me, cause I, none of that.
Nothing was sent to you. I'm communicating as a chair to another chair and advising you of a potential item. It doesn't, you don't have to act on it. It's just information.
Okay, thank you.
Members have came to me, so.
Public safety and transportation, Sean.
Well, we had a lively meeting as usual with the Department of Transportation coming and talking about the 160th corridor and what they wanted to do with the redesign of this corridor. And we also discussed the 3rd Avenue redesign that we have discussed a few times before, but they had this was from 96th Street to 128th Street. And we were asked to give a letter of support and then a letter of interest, and then that was not asked at the very beginning. So we asked for, well, you didn't answer our concerns. And there was no response. So when they were in the room, they physically came, I said, we did not get a response to our concerns. And their response was like, we are going to give it to you. I said, well, we don't have it yet, so we cannot make any sort of decision, more or less a letter, without this information. And I was going to take a motion to say, just deny everything because we didn't get it. But I would stop like, no, wait, we'll get it to you. So I'm giving them more time. And I repetitively ask, I want block by block, what is going to happen to 3rd Avenue? There's a lot of first responders on 1st Avenue that need to be there and can't be pushed to the side. Our community is not a thoroughway, a freeway. We are people that care about where we live, and we don't want to redesign that something with somebody else. This is our community. And I stood fast for both the 3rd Avenue as well as the East 116th corridor. And that is how it ended. And when she was leaving the commissioner for the DOT, I reiterated that. For maybe the fifth or sixth time, I don't know. But we're still on talking terms and they're still open to conversation. Cause that's what we want. And that is what the whole group wanted. The whole committee. After all of that was done, another choice, youth and family outreach came to request an open street. And unfortunately, everyone was a little tired, but we did listen. And a motion was made by callers to provide a letter of support for an application for an open streets location that was made by.
Well, I didn't make the motion.
No, but the request was made by another choice, Youth and Family Outreach on 115th Street between Madison and Park Avenues. The motion was seconded by Valerie Ponte, and we found out we don't need to have that information anymore, so forget that. But we were all, most of us were very interested in having open streets and having our community have a place to talk and come.
Thank you so much. Economic development and culture, we don't have Jose here, do you want to speak to the action item? Discuss. Go ahead.
So we had a presentation from the Puerto Rican workshop. And, a motion was made by me, to provide a letter of support. And in their endeavor to create a new art space exhibitions and housing at 121st and East, 106th Street. And the motion was seconded by myself, Martina, and Kathy unanimously. So they are right now housed in Julio de Burgos. They actually was the one that created Julio de Burgos many years ago. Unfortunately, they have to leave. So they do have another, they have a building on 106 between Lex and Park that they want to renovate. So they are asking for a support letter, a support letter to request funding, whether it's federal government and private. Just to be able to have their exhibition, their art exhibition there, they have art studios there. And yeah, continue with their the arts.
Great. Okay, thank you. District needs a budget.
We met yesterday. We've only got 5 committee members basically at this point, so hopefully the 5 of us are the doers. So you had Sage Mason provided some great updates to the statement of district needs, which we're in the progress of rewriting. And between Ken, David Giordano, Derek and I, we will be hopefully reaching out to each one of you. It's a little bit confusing because our committee names don't necessarily line up exactly with some of the policy areas as we break it up in the narrative. So for an example, there's one policy area that's housing, economic development and land use, which is like, come on. So we're just trying to set up an understanding of your committee goals, action items that y'all have done and are planning to do, any like ideas of future requests so that we can help you work with the city agencies and, you know, hopefully you all will, you know, put forward some kind of committee action that aligns with that future ask. We reviewed the work plan, which, you know, basically we would not have had to meet this March, but as we are in the rebuilding stages of this committee, we're trying to keep the ball rolling in preparation for next year. So yeah, you'll hear from one of the 5 of us, if not all 5 of us, and we look forward to having a document that reflects exactly what we're doing and continuously helps us to do our work better.
Thank you. Yes, Michelle.
There's only 5 on the district needs?
There's 6, but one's leaving.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
due
so
to
only
this
5.
finishing her
She needs to
her term, so
participate.
when the new board members are signed, she will fall off. She'll move to a public member unless it's in permits. Yes, Angel.
Since it's been mentioned about the number of members on that committee, I'll share my opinion. You have 5 members that are actually engaged in the conversation. throughout the entire 2 hours that we were here last night, every single one of those members had substantive things to add, real questions to ask. I'd rather see a 5-person committee that's committed to actually doing the work and actually engaging in the conversation, actually interested in the topic, than a 10-person committee that does absolutely nothing.
Is that
Anne Marie?
a meeting? We also had 3 presenters here, 3 organizations that presented too. So we had time for all that and questions and it went well.
Thank you, noted. Thank you for the good work. In executive, we're in it right now, so we'll move us along. That is our agenda for next Tuesday. With that, we will go to the board member attendance for 2024-25 meeting session. Pull that up on the screen, huh?
We do this every meeting?
It's become the thing,
I thought we already did.
It's on the agenda, every meeting,
You got a report?
always.
That's all we gotta see. Yeah, don't need to talk about it.
It's a question.
Yes.
It was the hit list. That's it.
How come we got that book presentation about Robert's rule now after 2 years that I've been here? Like, why, so, why not doing orientation with new members?
This was from. Presentation, but Andrew can speak to that.
It's very discouraging to do this job. I want you guys to understand.
I like it, I'm sorry.
My job, it's very discouraging. So the Civic Engagement Commission, which was created after the last charter review, reached out to the community boards, so all community boards, and offered a series of trainings, to which we responded, yeah, they were on the agenda. And to suggest that, you know, you weren't consulted on an agenda, of course you were consulted on the agenda. It's very discouraging. I wanna make a suggestion that starting immediately, agendas are fully created by chairs until such time as you all see fit to be comfortable with the staff helping to create agendas. Because the fact is that 95% of the agendas are created by the staff. And you all show up to your meetings surprised about what's on the agenda, not just this committee, most of the committees. It's very discouraging because we take the calls and we're fielding things and making suggestions and getting no responses. And then we look quite ridiculous and unprepared and unprofessional when our sister agencies are asking, oh, is this on the agenda? Is this on the agenda? And we're stuck and we're left with the choice of telling them no or putting it on and hoping that you all don't, you know, appreciate that you all appreciate it once it's there. So if you know, what I'm suggesting is that at this moment that the staff not forward you anything. Any of our own fresh ideas, you guys make up your own agendas. I only ask that you have your final agenda by 12 o'clock on the Friday so that we can include it in the newsletter for the public's benefit.
Right?
2 things to say. This was great. That presentation was great. I just wish I had gotten it before.
Mhm.
That's just what I'm saying.
Oh, I'm not complaining at you.
Oh, okay, but I'm like, wait, hold on, what happened here? I'm saying, it was great. I learned, but I learned
Yeah,
2
we've had
years
this
later.
Well,
He wasn't saying anything.
Okay,
Yeah.
that's 1 and 2, you want us to.
So you gotta
create the
address the
agenda?
chair.
Okay, now I know what's going on now.
Okay, so we have the board member.
Yeah,
attendance.
I'm not there.
We have the board member
Yeah,
attendance. Yes, Amber.
One more thing, what I'm saying is, I don't mind doing the agenda, that's fine with me, but then how do we get? You guys get all the calls, right? People asking you guys,
I'll forward it to you like we always.
okay.
Okay, who is Mr. Toth? Go ahead, Rosa.
Just for the record, I like working with the liaison on the agendas and I feel like it's a 50-50. So I am very and extremely happy with that, and I do know what's happening in my community. Just for the record. So we have, Jose Altamirano, the full board? Okay, let's go to the full board.
Here, we're on the full board.
Oh, I'm looking at my thing. So for full board, we have, Jose Altamirano with 1 only.
Well,
We don't.
We just do the floor.
Just the red one.
Just the red one? So-
Yeah.
Oh, thank you. You know,
So we have Judith with September excuse, November excuse, December excuse.
but she still
February
counts those
absence,
for us.
well, we're not gonna vote at all.
And, three,
When is she?
maybe Sage Mason with us three, absent October, January, and February. And, Jennifer Mayer. Excuse in September. Absent November, December, January, and February.
Am I not seeing the lady?
And
It's the last column. It's the
That's
last
good,
column.
right?
The last.
And we have Alida Chickambo with, excuse in October, absent November, December, and February. And we have Jason Villanueva with, excuse in October, absent in December, excuse in January.
That's only three.
Yeah, we just.
Right.
Matter,
Okay, just putting it out there, that's. all.
Yes, Jason.
yeah, so we talked about this last month, and the position was that we were gonna take some action on individuals that actually are delinquent. So that's why I earlier, this isn't personal to the chair, that's why I asked about the report, right? So if we're gonna re-engage about it, then maybe we should table this. I have a conversation about it next month, or unless we're gonna rehash the conversation from last month.
Isn't what we've agreed on that whoever's red now comes in next month and gets to state their case, and then we decide if they stay on the board or not?
So you-
For our bylaws.
So-
You're saying that we're gonna do due process to the fours,
Well,
and
why
we have to
wouldn't?
let them know, we have to let people know at three, that's what I'm doing right
No,
now.
I know, but the fours right now, have they been notified?
We haven't voted on.
Well, can we vote on them?
Second.
I make a motion to start the process with all four of the people that are,
I have a.
I move to.
Wait, wait, one
Yeah.
second.
Hold on.
I listen.
I cannot read this. So those are. Thank you. No, which of the fours?
It's Alita,
Yeah.
Jennifer Mayer,
Who's
that one above
The
you?
rest of them are.
Jennifer Mayer's the first one. Those two? That's it? That's it? Okay, so it's the two then.
So it is who, Jennifer Mayer.
And Alita,
Chicken Boom.
yeah.
Should we wait for to go through the rest of them? See if there are any more?
Oh, you mean like with the committee thing? Yeah, sure. Oh, we have two, we'll keep it a running tally.
Okay, so my question, I retract, I would think that if someone's already gonna be leaving, like Judith.
When, you asked, when would Judith
All in
be
there.
off the board?
Promise you.
At the end of April, when they appoint the new members in May.
So next month. All right, so then we don't need to take action.
Cause I mean, if it's next month.
Which,
it doesn't
which
matter.
committees have two?
Read the law, gotta read the law. Well, they amended to 6 months, it'll be a wrap, one meeting out.
Andy Chomsky is a public member that we dealt with directly.
Yeah, I thought we were dealing with that already. The fourth
Public
absence.
member and you that,
That's
Yes,
public
I've
record.
Why is she not a public member?
how do you? Oh, yeah, we gonna do it.
I've reached out to.
And what did she say?
She has not fulfilled my phone call.
Okay,
So then
that's
she's off,
heinous.
right?
Yeah, that's bad.
That's a public member?
She should just be off.
Go on, who, so this is
This is the Economic Development Committee,
kind of
Benny Torres
for
and Shani Wolfo.
Shani
Then she.
resign.
Mhm.
Shani resigned.
2/3 of all committee meetings, so we can go just one.
Okay, next. Next.
Executive.
It's fine.
That's known.
Fabio.
Take her out. I'll throw this line.
See that? Looking good up there, see that?
Yeah, we got some.
They were doing this.
There's somebody, right?
For public safety, Jose has 6.
That's the only thing he has 6 on, right?
Oh,
He doesn't have it on the other committee, same with Vinny.
And then Alida has 5 on youth and education.
She's not on that anymore.
yeah, they won't, that won't, Tara.
Okay,
Thank you for sharing.
Thank you.
just reading the thing.
No, thank you.
So it's 2 people, right? Alida and,
Jennifer.
Jennifer Meyer. All right, so then, my motion, there's no motion?
Wait one
Hold on,
second,
hold on.
No, it's fine, hey, man.
one second, there is no,
That, let's go.
tap out to you. So there is no member that has 4 absences in one committee and 4 absences in another committee. A lot of the members have 4 in just one committee or full board. So that's what I'm saying, there's no one to be removed.
Oh, it's full board doesn't count separately?
No, full
No, it
board
does.
does count separately. It is an either or, so it's either 4 or more, a full board,
Right,
or 4 of each committee you serve on or more.
right, so weren't there 4 or more for 2 people on full board?
Correct.
So then
those-
so then what was I just being told? I'm confused, and I was correct.
You are correct.
So then why am I being told there's no?
Alita is not on youth and education anymore.
No, but full board.
Yeah, we're only
Yeah.
talking about full board now.
Yeah, so that's why, I mean, I don't know why I'm being talked to like that. I was right. Am I right? So then I would talk to myself like that.
Again, you are correct. So I will now entertain. Yes.
We trying-
No more sugar.
I know.
Yes, Rose.
Everybody does.
It's
All board
3
does.
absences and 1 excuse for Alida, even though it's an absent, I mean, it was excused for a reason.
Well, it's still an absence.
Well, I
move.
Guys, the crosstalk we need to maintain.
remember this being a conversation last year, and I will bring up Angel's email again with referencing the bylaws. That an excuse still counts towards an absent, it doesn't, us calling someone in to discuss their absences doesn't mean we're gonna kick them off, it's more like a explain yourself type. thing.
We've said this like 100 times in the last 2 months.
That's why I'm like, why do we keep going over
I have
excuses?
no clue.
I love these conversations. So
Jason.
Chair, a beautiful solution would be a report from the secretary of those that are up for due process.
They're 2
As
people.
opposed to us, as chairs, we're responsible. I know that. Like, you know, I just think that is kind of ad hoc and is what creates the confusion, you know? It should get vetted, thorough,
I'm pretty sure Rosa can present only
Yeah.
those that are at risk going forward.
and that's it.
So it just, it's a simple.
So if she presents those names, then we can move.
That's it. It makes it. Thank you, Jason, for the recommendation. We can do that going.
It's actually
forward. Thank you,
bylaws.
Rosa. Thank you, Angel.
But can I say something? I'm sorry, there was actually no confusion here. I said exactly what was supposed to be said. So I don't know how that became confusion. I mean, we've said we were gonna do it this way, and now we're doing it this way, and then there's a problem. I mean, I don't understand that really. We're talking about excusals again. Like, this is this touches what I said earlier. It's getting frustrating sitting here.
Okay, Adam,
I won't make it now. Someone else can make it. I'm not doing that.
yes, yes.
Motion to start the process of due process for removal for, hold on. Jennifer Meyer, Alita Chikamboo. And that's it.
Okay, so there's a motion by Ms. Elliott to begin the removal process for Jennifer Mayer and Alita Chikamboo. Is there a second?
Me,
Michelle?
I'm sorry.
I'll give it to Michelle. All those in favor? Any opposed? Any abstentions? The motion carries. Thank you. Going forward, thank you, Rosa, for your hard work and that work that you've done with the staff, providing just a more distilled version going forward. All right, on to old business. I appreciate everyone's work and the robust discussion. Last month, I got to listen to the meeting. I have not had the opportunity to review this, previously. That was sent across last night. Thank you very much. It's a good start. I do want to allow for Anne Marie Vasquez and myself, who were not present at that meeting, to add a little color and context and history. Given that I think Jason Villanueva and Nilsa, myself were the ones who were here during that process. I think clarifying, the attendance requirements, that's number one. Don't really see an issue with diving deep into that. I can see, given the process we went through, provide attendance requirements for board officers and leadership, that could come up as a general issue of creating two classes of board members, and that would be something that I would recommend to go to general counsel and the city law, and whether it's something we should engage in. 3, adjust attendance requirements require less committee meetings missed in order to start the due process. I think that's a good continued conversation. Adjust officer terms to be in alignment with appointment terms to avoid gaps. This was, and for those that remember when this discussion happened years ago, I think it's about 9 years.
Where are you reading off from?
I'm reading from the minutes.
Oh, okay,
So. because
I'm reading off the proposed revision summary.
Yes, I'm going off of what was sent in the minutes.
Great.
Because that's what was here, and I have not had the opportunity, because this just came across yesterday evening. The adjust the officer terms to be in alignment with appointment terms, avoid gaps in leadership requirements. So when this was originally passed, as those remembered, it was the position of the bylaws committee and of the board at that time, is that holding them in November would allow ample time to have people get to know the candidates, versus if they just get on the new board members and you hold it immediately thereafter the appointments, that it would then limit the capacity and favor incumbents. And so that was the argument of the day at the time. So again, this was something that was taken under consideration, debated extensively. Remove assistant treasurer and secretary position is something we debated for some time. Not opposed to it. Some community boards still maintain theirs to this day. So again, it's kind of just a holding pattern there, but in the absence of a treasurer or the secretary of the day, the assistant can step up. Require that the board members currently about for that position may not serve as office of the board. I believe it was Nilsa who brought this up with Peggy Morales in the meeting last. This was addressed with general counsel Adele Bartlett and city law at the time. And it was the opinion at that time that you can't limit board members or officers at that time and create two classes of citizens as if you were in service. Case in point, CB5 tried to do that with saying you can't be working for a particular nonprofit and also be on the community board. And that was also perceived, and the opinion was that you can't also limit that where someone works. But at the time, it was perceived that even being on the ballot was an interview process, which opened the eyes. The law was perceived as no different than applying to be a deputy borough president or a deputy director of parks. It is an interview process. And it was their opinion by the general counsel and city law that should not be something taken on. And in fact, we had Peggy Morales, who was a district leader at the time, who served both roles. Clarify responsibilities of the chair of the board. I'll dive into that a little bit more when I have some time. Clarify term limits for officers and committee chair positions. The current iteration is that you serve at the pleasure of the chair. I think that's up for discussion and how to move people around and develop talent. But again, that should be something that should have a more robust conversation. And alignment with the bylaws and community board processes. Don't necessarily see an issue with that, but I think it's a very lengthy conversation. So Anne Marie, is there anything you'd like to add since you were not present?
No. It's just that, yeah, I wasn't present, so I would like to have some time to review.
Any other board members?
Did you say at the beginning of this, Chair, that you was doing the committee?
Yes.
Bylaws, and what was the other
City
part?
charter, bylaws and city charter.
Okay.
Yes, Jessica.
You mentioned that you were also starting a elections committee. The bylaws say that we have to appoint them to fill a vacancy. We have to appoint the most recently appointed by elections committee. So wanted to put that out there. It's something that did not change in this bylaws revision. Second, first of all, you know, all that I've put a lot of effort into putting things into what we see here. Not everything obviously needs to be adopted, but I do think that there are very important things that have very important timelines that we need to spend the time to review, but at the same time, make decisions quickly so that we're not put on our back foot as we move into our term limits. And I just wanted to respond briefly to, I think Xavier, you're saying, quote, "I'm not opposed to these changes." I think it's for everyone to decide what changes we make to these bylaws. It's not directed at anyone. The purpose is not to, have specific elements affect specific people on the board. Obviously, I think the purpose is to have a functioning board, which I think many of us believe that we are struggling to have a functioning board at this time. And we need to make changes in order to get functioning. You also mentioned that there was previously the election cycle for officers was coordinated to help new board members get to know existing members of the board so that they can, have an opinion or whatever voting. It's their job in the procedure of applying to a community board to be in attendance at meetings before the end of the fiscal year in June. They're required to be here, and they're also encouraged to attend these meetings in advance of even applying for the board. So they should know who people are at full board. They should know the officers at the table. They should begin to get to know different people at the board from just being here. And honestly, that'll hopefully bring us better board members. So there also was no term limits at that time, and it's the only impetus for this change is that there's no 6-month gap between the end of our officer appointments and the appointment cycle with how we manage our leadership moving forward, because that is going to be an intensely difficult thing to overcome on a bi-yearly basis. So I think if everyone could just take a look at these changes, a lot of them are just realigning to the city charter, removing references to things that literally don't apply to us. So if it helps to dumb it down for a first revision to get things moving for specific things that are important and should be addressed quickly, then I think it's a good idea to identify those elements, specifically the term limits, the term of officers in the election cycle, so that we can do that. And everything else that has maybe, a little bit more contention around it, like not being on the ballot for, sure, like, I think we can all form our opinions about that. And it doesn't necessarily have to be in this iteration, but there are certain things that need to be addressed sooner than later. And I think we need to be aware of that and not pigeonhole ourselves into a very ineffective process as we move into term limits.
Adam and then Rose.
So like, what's the timeline? Like, if we are, so we're gonna have a bylaws committee, what's the timeline with everything? Like, what's the ideal timeline in which we would, I don't know, sort all this out?
So I think, we just opened this up under new business last month. There was a general, and I listened to the meeting, and it didn't seem like it seemed like there was a discussion, right? A general discussion. I think as a timeline, I think it's important to be inclusive and democratic and transparent to all of the members, and some have expressed interest in being involved, or at least being able to opine on these matters. I think and that's why I made the announcement, I would be forming and making the announcement and opening up for people to submit their candidacy or for consideration at full board and give them the opportunity. As for a timeline, the next appointments will cycle off. All right, so we're appointed in May. If you're reappointed in May, you cycle off in 2 years' time. So there is time for bylaws to do research, and I appreciate and applaud. This is a good start. It's a good start, so I want to say thank you to everyone, and thank you, Jess, for doing the work. I know what it's like. I remember what it was like when Nelson, Jason, all of us were involved. So it's important for all of us to do the research, to do comparative analysis, to also make sure we're not exposed to any liabilities, and to make sure that we're also being fair in the process and engaged. So down, and then I got to go to
I
Rose.
just want to follow, I know that you'll appoint them and it's open, but my suggestion is, I don't even know if this is allowed, that preference be given to whoever's on this committee, if they want to be on that committee. Just because, I don't want these tough things being decided by people who don't do anything. So if somebody shows up, like, oh, I want to do this now, like.
Rosa? Yeah.
So, last month, for my understanding, we were just talking about making all these changes and everything, now that we had it. I was reading the emails, like, what is going on, like, all this, like, it took me by surprise as to like, this is gonna happen and this is it, I was like, oh, we didn't have, first of all, at least for me, I've been in many boards, as the community education council, Manhattan High School President's Council, Chancellor, you know what I mean? So I'm like, I've read numerous bylaws and I've read numerous, state educational law, and I'm like, first, you have to have the bylaws in front of you, which we did not. So I didn't have the bylaws in front of me, it wasn't given to me.
You
We
have the
just saw-
bylaws, everybody has the bylaws.
We had the bylaws?
100%.
Yeah, we all have.
I didn't.
You're a community
did
board
have-
member, you have access to them, like.
No,
all
no,
of
no,
us.
did we have them on paper?
It doesn't have to.
Yes, we do need to have it on paper because we're in person. Anyway, the point is, we were just discussing it. Now that we were making this revision to like a lot of members were not here.
Thank you for
And
the
this should,
initiative.
in my opinion, it should just be like everyone, like the whole full board, because it's not just us, it affects everyone.
But
you
the
know-
full board has to vote on this to ratify it regardless.
Right, but we need to have a discussion where, oh, hey, guys, we're gonna sit down and we're gonna make this discussion when the bylaws are right in front of you and say, how about this change, how about this? I was not paying attention, you see what I mean?
What's the point, Chair?
So, hold on.
It's just my opinion, that's.
Yeah, so.
I appreciate it, I just want to understand the point.
What are you talking? The point is just my opinion, that's all.
So, Isaac.
Yeah, I just wanna, everyone had the bylaws, everyone could have, as a chair, everyone should be familiar with the bylaws. So when we come out of a meeting about bylaws, if you weren't familiar with it, I would assume that everyone would have looked at it then. But that's not why I raised my hand. I raised my hand because I do think it's irresponsible to not do a better job at trying to outline a timeline for this, because what it sounded like just now was your efforts were good. Thanks for starting us off. I'm going to take us down this route, which will take XYZ time. So they'll have to do research, do all these things before it changes, which will take months' time. And the vice chair just shared that there are some very urgent things that we can look at. And I also agree with Adem that most of the people who do the work on this board is at this table. So we should, there should be some preference given to certain people on this committee to be on that committee to ensure that the bylaws are, the changes are being made correctly. I think, I think we need to, I do believe it would be, I would feel as a chair better to know that you are outlining a process with a timeline and not nothing that's vague, but like, hey, this month, we're going to do this. Next month, this is the plan. Next month, this is the plan. Additionally, some of these things we can look at. Folks didn't have time to look at it. We can come back next executive committee and ratify some of this stuff and bring it to full board and have it ratified, and things that are more in depth that we want more people in. We can look at it. We don't have to table the whole thing as if nothing happened. And I know that you might not like that happened while you weren't here, but I think the process that was taken last month, I think we should respect the process of folks looking. People are working, doing this work and seeing things that are not right. So that needs to be handled with a little bit more care than just something vague. That's just my.
But it was not an intention to be vague, respectfully, Isaac. I think, the question was asked, and for the timeline, you have to open it up. An announcement for full board would be made, and I would want to receive members and be able to discuss it. I will get it to you after, Mr. Malone. Okay, thank you. Not ignoring you. The timeline in an ideal world is to be able to give people the opportunity to submit their names for consideration. And I am not all opposed, and we would encourage members who have interest to also who sit on this committee, who are a little bit more knowledgeable, if you will, on the matter, to sit on that committee as well. But again, it is ideally to have, in an ideal world, is to have an announcement at full board in March, announce the committee members by April, and then they can set the task. Okay, but it is important that in doing that, it's done in a very similar fashion that Alex Cohen, who chaired that previous committee, which was very comprehensive, very detailed, and Nelson and Jason, we remember how And now some of these things can be low hanging fruit. There's not a denial of that. Again, that's why I said this is a good start, but I think, again, so that isn't an ideal one. So go ahead and listen.
I'd like to offer a suggestion, right? Like, I understand Rosa, so the concern you shared. I thank you for your hard work and everybody's hard work here. The election, because of the term limits and the fact that we're going to be having another election coming up, at least while we're here. If anybody who is cycling off wanted to run again, the danger is that they will get elected for, let's say, a year and a half, and I think that is why the time period of elections, I remember when I first started to chair election, the bylaws before Alex, and then I served as his vice chair. One of the things that I did was look at the other community boards and see when they voted for their people, their leadership, to see how it could dovetail. So like if we get appointed in May and their election started, let's say they followed like a June process or something, that you get the most value because more than likely they can serve most of the term. So without stepping on anybody's toes, what I'm going to do is I'm going to do what I did before on 2 different bylaws committees. I'm going to go back and I'm going to see when the elections committee convenes and when they have their elections, right? So that this way all of you have in front of you what other boards do in terms of, I'm not gonna put all the thing, but just the stuff, so we can see, and maybe if at your discretion here, whether the election cycle is something that should be looked at, if just on its own individually, and apart from everything else that was brought up, and then the bylaws committee, as it is formed and convened with members here and others, then there's other issues that you looked at. Just a suggestion.
Thank you, Mr. Angel.
Several things. I think you guys are disrespecting each other. You had a conversation last month in an open public meeting and a record was kept. And this month you have a conversation under old business, a discussion on amending the bylaws. No one has suggested, nor does it indicate on here, nor does it indicate in what's been proposed to you that a vote was anticipated this evening, just for clarity, in case there was a little bit of confusion. This is a proposal, like you hear proposals all the time, you vote on them when you're ready to vote on them. No one's saying you have to vote on them this evening. My understanding is that the suggestion was to put this stuff together for you all to discuss this evening, consider over the next month, and vote on it as early as next month. Not vote on it tonight, so I don't understand the tension. And the discussion hasn't been had. So the proposal hasn't even been allowed to be presented and discussed before a no or before not yet was uttered. So why are you having agendas if you're not gonna respect each other's time, if you're not gonna respect each other's efforts? Words are fine. Thank you for your effort, but we're going to dismiss it. We're not even gonna listen to it first. Listen to it first. Hey, these are my ideas, and then you can agree or disagree, but you haven't even heard it yet. You just said yourself, you haven't had a chance to read them. Okay, fair, but then hear the person out at least. No, so I haven't read it, and I'm not gonna hear you out. Come on, like that's not fair. And in terms of the bylaws, yes, you were here, I was here too. I was here for Diane's, I was here for Nelson's. I was here before Alex was here. So I know where all those discussions were. I know the considerations of other boards and all that stuff. There's nothing in this proposal that runs counter to the law, except for the one question about whether a sitting officer can remain in office if they're running for external office. I'll give you that one. The rest of that stuff is something that runs afoul. As a matter of fact, these beloved bylaws are in contradiction to the city charter. And have been. So you asked before, Adam.
Thanks.
Why do we keep having these conversations? This is why. Because unfortunately, people are not taking the time to understand what their rules are. People are deferring to someone else. And not taking the time to make themselves expert on what the rules are, what the procedures are. And I'll go back to that parliamentary procedure conversation. They've gotten a lot of pushback because they didn't understand when they were first presenting that community boards have their own rules. And now they've recently changed it to have that order of operation. Right? We established our own rules. And why do we record the second? Because you know how that saying, water always finds a way? Foolishness always finds a way. We've had many, many occasions where a motion was made, it wasn't fully documented, and then somebody said, I didn't hear a second, that's not a vote. So we err on the side of caution. So I make y'all do a second roll call since we've been virtual to err on the side of caution. Is it slightly annoying? Sure, you should be over it by now. It's been 5 years. It takes all of 10 seconds. But if ever anybody came to question whether you had, I got you. Right? If we do things the right way, but if it's always deferring and pushing and you know, and people are getting confused, instead of being helped to find the light, to understand the thing, it's just this, you know, more confusion. So I understand Rosa being like, wait a second, what, I'm about to vote? Well, no, tell her, no, we're not about to vote.
No.
This is presented for discussion like any other item. That changes the perception, it changes your outlook, it changes how you engage the conversation. But if you're unsure, right? And you're like, wait a second, I'm not ready to vote. And no one's disabused you of that, you know, misconception. Then of course you're gonna be reticent to vote. But if it's said, well, we're just talking about it. We're continuing the conversation that we had last month, that you were all very engaged in. Very excited to have that conversation. And then someone takes the effort to put pen to paper and presents it for your consideration and for your discussion, but that gets put aside. How is that respectful of each other's time? It just isn't. And to allow the suggestion that something's being rushed through, I think is unfair to each other. It just isn't factual. It just isn't. And the fact is that the bylaws do not have to be amended solely by the formation of a bylaws committee. It says it right there on the last page. There are multiple different ways that you all have the right to pursue that. So the chair can do it, the VP can suggest it, you can form a committee, or just the executive can bring it up, or a motion can be brought up at full board. So you have rights, defend your rights to do what you want to do, you choose whatever option you want, but to say that we're only gonna do it via a committee or not a committee. You know, like the last time we had a big start to revising the bylaws, it was thwarted by the chair then. A whole bunch of work was put in and it was thrown in the garbage.
Yeah.
And only after that happened, did we ultimately get to the part where everyone was so, you know, fussy that it was given to Alex to do. That's the fact. Piles of paper here, and it was just thwarted. You know, come on, guys. You know, like, why do members keep quitting? A number of different reasons. Part of the reason they get frustrated with the silliness. Respectfully, like, you know, like, let's be consistent. When they see things are inconsistent, they're like, well, I'm not gonna do this. But if they see that things are above board and we're not just saying transparent, but we're actually defending transparency, we're not just saying democracy, but we're actually defending democracy in every effort, in every opportunity, then they're like, okay, this is worthwhile. But if they see things being thwarted all the time, it's discouraging. Like I said before, it's discouraging to us. I don't want to fight with y'all. I want to work with you. But if I'm sending you a draft agenda and you never comment, what is that? I'm not the chair of the committee. I'm not. It's your committee. You show your effort. But then you reserve the right to fuss. Oh, what's this? When did this happen? When you weren't paying attention. You know, do your bits. So vote or don't vote, read it or don't read it, but don't say that it's being rushed. It just isn't. It just isn't. That's unkind to Jessica. It's unkind to me. It's just not factual. Thank you.
Yes,
Thank you. I just want to reconfirm that my email from last night said, in order to affect any changes for this term cycle, we will need to provide these bylaws changes to the full board for review by May sixth, so that there are 50 days as required to review ahead of the June full board meeting. That would give us enough time to enact the changes specific to the term cycles and realignment to the appointment cycle. We spoke last meeting about the bylaws, and as it was noted, the bylaws are something that is available for everyone in the community board drive. We've mentioned the resources to the community board, to everyone on the board 1,000 times, and I just hope that everyone knows that the bylaws are not something that is being kept from you. The bylaws are something that everyone has. Everyone should have reviewed on this committee, specifically coming out of last month's meeting where we spoke at length about the bylaws. It was noted at the end of the last meeting that I personally would take a stab at implementing what we outlined in our discussions on the committee. That was not to say that all of these revisions are in stone. It says proposed revision, and it lists the things, so that what I was hoping we would do today was that we would come in. Maybe not everybody had a chance to read it, but everyone's aware of the structure and substance of the bylaws. And that I've provided this lovely cover sheet for you all that explains the myriad of changes that we could just talk through one at a time. This one was one that we talked about specifically last meeting. This one came up because it was impacted by that one that we talked about and at committee, so that we could discuss the changes and decide, you know, maybe we want to move forward with XYZ now and we want to hold the other ones. Sure. Or we could have said, you know, we could have done any number of things. That's the whole point of this committee and the work, is that we talk about these things and that we come prepared and are able to have discussions to be able to move forward in a way that is not, you know, taking every, you know, minute that could possibly be taken. And June's, yeah, so I talked about the email. I'm wondering though, if we talked about this at last meeting, I understand that the chair of this committee was not here. But knowing that we spoke about the bylaws and that it was on the agenda again this month, and that, you know, the minutes of the last meeting said that we were putting forward a proposal based on the outcome, I don't understand why an elections committee would not have been considered before tonight. Thank you.
Okay, so that doesn't, anyway, the elections committee we just had between full board and between now Stephanie Arroyo and Claudia Perez resigned.
But that's separate item.
That's a separate item we brought up just now. So the elections committee, because of that and the complete absence, and we've held off and we've had discussions about that issue about, because the two assistant positions have been held open, well, actually just the one. Because we have now an absence of both assistants roles and the treasurer, that's why that was brought up. And also, so that answers that question. As for this, and again, I am open to the conversation.
I'm at bylaws committee, not elections committee. That's where we're confused.
So I want to be abundantly clear. Again, I applaud the work. I was a little surprised. However, no one at this table, and I want to be abundantly clear, no one at this table has brought to my attention that they wanted to form a bylaws committee or initiate a process. Because I would have been pleased to actually have convened a bylaws committee as early as January, if it had been presented to me per our current bylaws. Again, this is where the process is. We can have a conversation, we can go over some of this stuff. But I think it's important that we also engage the members as well, because there are people who would like to be involved, who had expressed interest over a year ago, who expressed, and we had shot it down. So again, this is again, not to.
Everyone didn't shoot it down.
I was open to it then, and I'm open to it now. So yes, Asher.
I thought it done.
Could we please just go over like what was sent here? Because
I'm down.
I'm not judging if people didn't read it. I read it and I'm just, yeah, correct, please. Thank you. It's too much arguing about, it's too much arguing about.
So members shall, the first one is members shall have no less than 2/3 of all meetings of full board.
The first one's on the first.
Yeah, the first one's on the front.
We're talking about this, this sheet?
Yeah, we're talking about-
Right?
I summary
Okay, I gotta get it.
Well, you have,
in the email.
What are we talking about? So first is removal of assistant secretary, right? That's what we're looking at. Yeah. Yes and yes to one.
And how much is read for them?
Yeah.
Yeah, please, please.
Two
Okay.
hours.
Okay, so in summary, the bylaws, which one you for?
That was the email that we got yesterday, right?
Okay, yeah.
Do you have another summary, Jessica? Because I'm really missing.
I didn't print the summaries, but you guys
You
have
gave
it.
it. It's in our email.
The summary that Jessica sent.
So,
Yeah, yesterday at 6:30 PM, 6:25
it
PM.
wasn't printed, that's all.
I know, but I only have one. I'm gonna go make a quick copy.
Oh, can you make one, please?
We can't put the.
Thank you.
This is lost. We can't put it.
Once again, out of here, quick, go ahead, Angel.
sure, so, yeah.
Meeting to go.
So it's organized into like, I think it's 20 or so points. So the first is removal of assistant secretary position. Slow me down if I go too fast. Removal of assistant treasurer position. Adjustment of attendance requirements to 2/3 required meetings within a 6-month period for alignment.
Sorry, wait, I don't have that in front of me.
Right.
Can I say something else?
Yeah.
While we're going through this, I was reading some of this, some words I don't understand. And I would like, when I ask, what does this mean? That someone nicely tell me what it means and not be condescending and rude.
It's so true. One day
Yeah.
for me, it's not enough time.
Yeah, there's wording here, I don't know.
We're
I
not
haven't
voting,
been
we're just discussing.
I know. I'm not saying that. It's just one day here. Here's a proposal, just, and then we excluded the rest of the team.
This is my last for tonight.
I know.
But it's just a conversation. Every month. Respectfully, every month, this man's committee. Okay? I'm not attacking you at all. Land use committee just saw a presentation of a ULUR. It's 700 pages. Right? We talked about it over several months,
Light work.
right? The resolution was 5 pages.
Teach,
Okay,
light work.
no, hold on.
No, I'm sorry,
No,
I'm-
just a minute.
I'm sorry.
So then we talk about it, right? We're like, okay, this is the main points. And then we field questions and we'll talk about some more. So that's exactly what this is. And there's no vote tonight. You don't have to have it memorized tonight. You have at the earliest, let's say we were rushing. At the earliest would be next month. No vote tonight, at the earliest. So tonight's just to talk, to get you, give you the summary of like, this is essentially what we're doing. And I'm not trying to be condescending.
No, okay, great. So now that you said that, I'm sorry, can I say something?
Yeah, go ahead.
So then if we're gonna start, reviewing this, moving forward, I think for the next couple of meetings, these elections, not election. These meetings, elected official meetings, we should go straight to this and not have other things going on with the agenda.
The executive committee. You mean-
Instead of, I'm sorry, not.
No, I'm with you.
The executive committee, we should go straight to this then, moving forward, instead of having presentations and people.
Thank you.
Sometimes we're not reading.
Thank you. We'll let it know the other copies will have them go.
Okay, yeah.
Go ahead.
Okay, so I'll start over. So these are just categories. So removal of assistant secretary position. Removal of assistant treasurer position. Adjustment of attendance requirements to 2/3 required meetings within a 6-month period for alignment with the city charter. Removal of special committee for attendance review and due process recommendation. Requirement that officers of the board must step down if actively running for political office. Realignment of officer terms with board appointment cycle. Meaning, instead of January to December of the following year, from August to July of the following. Year. Officer term limits reduced from 3 terms to 2 terms. Adjustments to the duties of the chairperson. To include, for the inclusion of the vice chair and district manager with chairperson decisions and actions. Addition of chairperson support for committee chairs. To work with chairs on selecting vice chairs and so forth. Addition of attendance requirements for chairperson, meaning the chairperson of the board and of the committees have to abide by the attendance requirements, just like any other member. Addition of review and approval of excusals for attendance. That applies to the chair in terms of, excusing members. Then adjustments to duties of the vice chairperson. Adding the attendance requirement for that person as well. Adjustments to the duties of the secretary. To clarify quorum and minutes duties. And adjustment to include a report on attendance. Attendance, also addition of attendance requirements for the secretary, so for all officers, the attendance requirement. And then lastly, the last officer, adjustments to the duties of the treasurer. Adjustment to quarterly report in coordination with the district manager instead of the monthly. Which we moved away from a long time ago, but now the bylaws will reflect that. Addition of duties and responsibilities of committee chairs and vice chairs as prescribed by the CB11 committee chair responsibilities document. Adjustments to excused absences, clarification of excused absences and notification requirements. Requirement of a written report for board members excused on board business, meaning. A member is excused on board business, they're expected then at the following meeting, provide a written report on the business that they were conducting. From the meeting, instead of the meeting for which they were excused. Adjustment of an excused absence to not count against attendance requirements. So there are certain categories by which you may be excused, so those won't count as missed meetings and count against you for removal. Which has been a bone of contention here many times, right? So reflecting conversations. Addition of absence for late arrival and early departure within a single meeting. This is to comply with charter. If you're late and you leave early, you're counted as absent. That's not reflected in our bylaws currently. Addition of membership or staff evaluations to executive session. So those evaluations will happen in an executive session. Clarification of public member process and requirements. Adding a little bit more meat to the public member process, adding a requirement that committee chairs to which a public member is seeking to join. That committee chair would get a sign off before the board chair makes the appointment. So it's like adding a layer of, consultation. Removal of special meeting for land use committee. Superfluous, we didn't need that. Removal of membership requirements for district needs and budget committee. Clarification of staff liaison responsibilities. District manager and staff addition to provide their professional opinions on matters of the board. Realignment of district manager duties with city charter and handbook for community board members. And lastly, general realignment with city charter requirements and terms and current processes of the board. Example, minutes requirements, parliamentary procedures, agendas, committee names. That's all.
Jason.
Not a question, or just, I guess we got this discussion throughout the month, right? Like, did we drop charter? I guess we have to cross that. Right, individually? Okay, I find it.
So, okay, I don't want to just answer to that question. So we are an entity of the city is an entity of the state, right? So the first rule is the state, right? And then everything that we do has to be in compliance. Everything the city does has to be in compliance with that, and then everything we do has to be in compliance with both steps. So like if the state and the city says you always have to go to the left, we can't go to the right.
Can I continue? My interest in this is then, right, because there was the point of that, the bylaw, not, forget what happened, right, but where we're at. We make those mistakes and then we just adjust it, that's it, okay, so I get it now.
Yeah, so within those two parameters, we have plenty of flexibilities, but we have to operate within those two parameters.
So like, and I remember the concept of general counsel from the borough president is irrelevant.
No, not at all. So like if we. No, I'm jumping ahead of you. So I was about to say sorry to you. If we run afoul or think we may be running afoul of law, then we have the general counsel you as the board have general counsel at your disposal to opine and clarify legal questions.
Yeah, so thank you, Angel. to elaborate, so when Adele Bartlett was here during this process, we would go to Adele, and if Adele didn't have the answer, she would go to city law. And we would consult with city law on a lot of the matters, and if there was a further question, we would go to court, conflict of interest. And that's where a lot of the determinations of the previous bylaws came down, is that it was consulted, and that's why it was expressed earlier in the meeting, some of these issues were raised, and were, litigated previously, no pun intended. So this is why.
I'm sorry, say that part again. I couldn't hear you. You said what was litigated?
No,
And
some of
what?
these issues were raised in the previous bylaws.
I know.
Revision and
Yeah.
asked and queried with Adele, the chief counsel.
Yeah,
And it went to city law, and that's how we came down with the decisions of the current bylaws that we have, several of those things. That were weighed out, including that if there was ever a question of a conflict, it should go to the conflict of interest board. So that's kind of like, again, like Angel just said, state, city. We use the general counsel can't answer, it goes to city law, and if there's a conflict of interest, it goes to conflict of interest, so. Good. Any other questions? Yes,
Just wanted to put it out there, if the requirement of the officers of the board must step down if actively running for political office is really as contentious as we're making it to be. What I will do is remove that from this, and I will recirculate a revised copy before full board, 24 hours in advance of full board, and I'll send it to the entire full board, if that would make everyone.
I'm sorry, why is it?
why are we sending it to full board?
Yeah, why is it taking it off? Why?
Because it's been mentioned that there are legal potential implications, and I see that holding us up more than anything else, and I guess, how much things matter on this list, that's probably, not the highest, so if we can just strike it now and focus on what's really important, then I'd rather do that than hold up this process for no reason.
Are we talking about these things?
Yes,
it's a
Michelle.
proposal, so we could just delete it. We don't need to be formal about it.
So
But to the point of having it to the board.
I
like
get it.
provided.
No, I get it. I'm just thinking, I'm sorry.
I gotta say, since we're going step by step at this particular point. I was just curious because I know we don't have them at this particular point. But I think that it does help to have it at an election. The assistants for both the secretary and the treasurer, just to have as, if we do get them, to have them because they are backups that are automatic. And I think that it's good to have an automatic backup.
But I think the spirit of this is that we've had cases, like now with our treasurer, that we don't even have the first person or the backup. There's a history of the system. Want to really get on the topic? Vice chairs. We want to give them more responsibility? How about any responsibility? I mean, I don't know, I don't really have a vice chair, I don't know, I don't believe in the second line of defense. We're struggling to get one person. I hear what you're saying, but tell me one time that you've been on the board, I've been on here for like 10 years, that an assistant has done anything. I can't name one instance.
I can say that I have done things when I was assistant.
Can I help? Can I?
Hold on, hold
Yeah,
on, please.
Please.
yeah.
Assistant what, secretary?
Treasurer.
Treasurer?
I wasn't treasurer, I was secretary.
Secretary.
And for the time that,
How's that?
both Giselle and myself, we sort of were co-secretaries at that point. Because she did not have enough time to do everything.
Well, then you're making actually my point. She should have just stepped down and you should become
And then
secretary.
she did.
Right, but why don't we just instead of giving people this long runway to not do their jobs and hold a position and sit up on stage, because let's be honest here, that's what a lot of people have done over this time, is done that so they could sit on stage. Like a lot of people joined this board so they could just tell people they're on a community board. So
That was not me.
no, I'm not talking about you. You're the opposite. You're literally the example I'm not talking about. I'm saying you with Giselle, right?
Mhm.
And it sounded like you became co-chair while you were still the assistant. What I'm saying is that that shouldn't have played out that way. You should have just been, they should have re-voted and made you that. You're like kind of making my point, and we're actually on the same page, I think.
So. Just to get back to some of these recommendations, some of the things that I can see as particular, I think we should consult. And the bylaws committee should consult. Some of these issues are low hanging fruit. That can be addressed, but attendance requirements for the officer roles. Stipulating they have a different attendance requirement versus the normal board member, that could be challenged.
It's the same.
Right, so if it's absolutely the same. Now the other thing, but just again, the way, if it's saying that everyone has the same attendance, then that becomes moot. The other thing too, the adjustment of excused absence to not count against attendance requirements could potentially conflict with city charter attendance. If we're excusing, so they have to attend, technically. They may not be in attendance, correct? Angel, within a 6 month period.
I'm sorry, do that again?
So adjustment of attendance requirements to 2/3 required meetings.
Yeah,
If a meeting is required and you're excused and we're not counting it, it's still a required meeting, so that could potentially be in conflict. For that individual in question.
I'm not following the logic, I'm sorry.
So if we're required, all of us are required to attend 2/3 of the meetings in a 6 month period.
Yes.
So 2/3, say January to June is 4 meetings, right? And say one person is excused, but they've still missed it. Under the eyes of the law, would that still, they didn't attend it, they're just excused from it, would it? This is something I would want to have, the general counsel opine on.
That's fair. Then the suggestion comment. Is a recognition of the conversation that's happened at the table so many times. Where when we're talking about missed meetings, which I think is a simple calculus, but has not been at this table. The trip up has always been excused. So I think what this proposal is doing is like, okay, we'll mark it, but we won't count it, so we no longer have that trip.
So basically.
So that's the spirit of the suggestion.
So,
But to check with council, I think that's fair, just to be, completely above board. I think the recommendation is seeking to reflect the conversations here.
okay,
Where like excuse was always been like, oh, I hurt my leg, or my dog was sick, or whatever.
okay, so Rosa,
Yeah, I have a big problem with excusal, non-excusal or anything like that, because sending an email 5 minutes before the meeting saying, I am not coming to the meeting, I don't see it as excuse.
I agree.
Or I'm just saying, like, we gotta respect each other. And if you stay, like I've been numerous times and I was still here, I will let you know. You know what I mean? It's respect to the chair, respect to everyone. I just don't feel like it's using everyone just because they send me an email 5 minutes before the meeting saying, I am not coming to the meeting. That's very disrespectful.
okay, Jess, and
Could not agree with you more, Rosa, which is why I would like to read the excused absences changes. A member may be properly excused from a meeting only for the following reasons. 1, military service. 2, for jury duty. 3, in the event of severe personal illness or severe illness or death in the family or household. And 4, absence on board business as directed by the chairperson or as is necessary to pursue board business with the acknowledgement and approval of the chairperson. A member excused on board business is required to provide a detailed written report on said business at the next board or committee meeting as applicable. In the event of travel or work, a conference call to a meeting shall be considered an excused absence. Okay, excused absences may be considered through the due process procedure if a member is recommended for a removal under Article 1 for the avoidance of doubt. An excused absence shall not constitute an absence. And then the notification says we're removing, make his or her best effort, because that clearly doesn't work, to notify the chairperson at least 24 hours prior to the anticipated absence. Such notifications shall be made in writing and should copy the chairperson, vice chairperson, secretary, district manager, and committee chair. And then it goes into the whole point of this is that excused absences, sometimes we need to be excused, right? And it has to be for a really good reason. That reason has to be made at least 24 hours in advance, or unfortunately you're absent. That reason has to go to the chair. And the chair has to approve that reason. And in collaboration with, for example, a committee chair that would be notified in addition to that absence. So it just makes it so that someone who needs to be excused is not being, we're not having this conversation where like, oh, 3 absences, 1 excuse. We just don't talk about it anymore. It's how many actual absences are we having? Because we trust that the chair is going to only approve the excused absences that fall under these 4 points. Thank you.
Asher and Marie.
No, just my boss, that's it.
Okay, and Marie.
So I don't fall under any of those 4 points because I do go to events for my job. So most of the time I'm excused because my job, I'm working, or I'm in Puerto Rico working. On vacation, so these are excuses, yeah, because, it's not an excuse not to be here, but they're legit, and I do tell my chairs and Xavier that I'm not gonna be here because of these reasons, so if I'm not military, I'm not dying, what are the other ones? I'm at a.
Then you're out.
Then you're out.
No, but you said
So I'm working.
you say you're doing business for the board and the chair knows,
And
right?
I'm not for the board,
Oh.
Yeah, well,
Oh,
that,
you gotta step
yeah,
down.
yeah, you're not gonna, you should,
No, I got you.
nobody should be excused for that.
You know,
No, but
tomorrow
that's.
I have an event tomorrow night for my job.
Right, but we've had people come here and plead their case and say, oh, well, I'm on too many things and I have too many meetings. And then the answer to that is, well, come back and join the board when you're done. I mean, that's it. It's a harsh reality that the work here can't be second, and the people that are on this board need, for the most part, to be able to, and I think you do. I don't know why you're really using yourself as this example, so I don't think you're a good example of it, and that's a compliment to you. But there are there are people who, and it's not you, who've, literally come in here and thought that that was a good way to make their case, and, it actually sounded like a great case of, maybe you should come back when you're ready to actually be on board, and you're not one of those people.
Second thing is, I'm sorry, I don't agree with this whole disability, I'm on Zoom. Unless you really say with it, unfortunately, you can't, ask them, but there are a lot of people using it as an excuse, and they're not disabled. And I don't know, we need to do something about that,
I would love to do something about that.
please, yes. And then they come off, they don't even finish the meeting,
They're not even there.
they're not here, they're on Zoom.
I feel the same way as our
Michelle,
presentation.
and Jason.
And public,
The 24 hours thing sometimes does not work, I've contacted people and they're in the emergency room. And it's not 24 hours, they don't know that it's gonna happen. An exception should be made if,
But the Samaritan law, I think, covers that, no? Like if it's an emergency, you're dying, then like that protects you. Cause from the explanation that Angel was making, no? Says there's state and city law that supersede the bylaw.
So I think this has been up to debate. So what do we do? And I think this is something that should be discussed, is what happens when you do have an emergency? Say you're in a car accident. Right,
Can't
so
notify.
we're gonna call that an absence.
Well, you're gonna have to make the judgment.
It's the
Yeah.
chair's.
No, and that's also, but yeah, so but I'm just putting that out.
Yeah,
because
yeah,
if we
but like-
codify it as black and white, 24 hours, and you start vomiting at,
I get it, so gross me out.
But it's
If you, yeah, so the 24 hour. I think the 24 hour requirement for notification, I think is a good one.
Yeah.
And then, if someone suddenly ends up in the emergency room, when they end up in the emergency room, that's a unique circumstance. Right,
Very rare.
but leaving it too loose opens you up to have a headache. Right, if it's God forbid you get to the point where, you have an emergency at the last minute, then we're not gonna be inhumane. Right, but I think having a good, strong rule isn't a bad thing.
Can
Okay,
I add to that
Jason,
point? Yeah, because I
Jason.
don't disagree, like, the issue, like, example given in land use, we'll have an action item, and there are moments I've experienced as a chair that I'm calling my entire committee an hour before, actually like 6 hours before, but an hour before the meeting, and then the member notifies me of their emergency, right? And I got receipts, which means, because I do everything through text. That will show you that the brother and or sister was not thinking about the board, and then unfortunately on Saturday, they're at a local event. So I don't disagree that there's concerns with change, as there's always gonna be, but I do agree, and I said this to us all a year ago when we first appointed some of the new electeds, that a revision was required, and I do agree with our vice chair that some items need to be addressed immediately, and I do agree with my chair that there are some items that need a deep dive. I guess the only question is, are we gonna do this all, you know, today, or are we gonna, what do we need to do?
So we're not making a decision on.
No, I know, no motions, I get that.
Yeah, so I do
Like,
think
what's our
that
plan?
making the plan is, we reviewed this. Does anyone have other questions on what was stated? I have a few as
Well,
well.
I have,
So,
yeah, go ahead, you first, then me.
And then, hold on, so our Asher was next,
Okay.
and then Rosa, and then it down. Sorry.
I would like to bring up the disability thing, because we keep bringing it up. I think we have to tread lightly with that, like we have said before in the past. Because I think we should be careful also with the language we're using, saying that people aren't really disabled because there is such thing as invisible disabilities. I think that it should more be. I think our main problem is not really the people being virtual, it's them being virtual and not participating. So I think like we have brought up before, and I will say it again, is maybe make it that they have to have their camera on and participate. I don't know how that exactly will work in terms of maybe putting that in the bylaws and stuff. But I think we need to be very, very careful with stuff like that.
So I just to comment on that, some of our members call in on the landline, so they don't have the option of being on camera. I'm not gonna say the two of them are. But it's something that we should take under discussion. So, but I agree, and I agree with you, Asher, on we have to tread lightly, especially because there are those invisible disabilities. I think it was Rosa.
yeah, so I bring up a point of, because I am a mother of 3 kids. One is on the spectrum and another one is a little child of 8 years old and my 17 years old. So what if in the future, because I haven't had this, my child is sick today and I'm still here. But if in the future, one of my kids is sick and I have to stay home, you know, like, will I be excused? Or will I be absent? You know, I'm not gonna be able to be on Zoom and attending to a sick child. That's also another thing, you know, being a mother.
Excuse.
Yeah, it would be excused.
Family.
And I like that though, because again, to engage the conversation, this is a work environment, right? We're working together, so I don't disagree. That's why we have a certain amount of allowable absences. So needless to say, I'm not explaining to you all why I was absent in December, because it was a personal matter, and I'm okay with the strike, right? We're not perfect, and I think the real conversation here is to get our membership engaged. I have no disagreement or concern with identity, labels, and entitlement, but as a member that's been here for a long time, the virtual process was developed because of the pandemic. The pandemic is over. And like I asked that full board to the politicians that my taxes are affording them to be beneficial, given the executive order from the President of the United States of America, despite your political affiliation, we're to be in person, right? So members have, and I have this issue particularly with respect to my board members who are volunteers. I love the statement that was made earlier about staff, elected officials. They receive their trade for them to be here. We're here to serve, and we receive our trade to be here. I am really conflicted at individuals presenting to us, and we have to be in attendance. And again, this ain't something we need to hash out today, but I am all for excommunicating the entire remote process. I've been the only executive committee member that has always voted against everything virtual, even in the midst of the pandemic, because we were still here attending meetings while the world was closed. Right? So And look, I get the sensitivity to it, but are we gonna work or are we gonna play? And I know I'm here to work. If there's some people that are here to play, or however it's defined as their reasons for why they're a part of the board, that's not our issue. So I think it's mixed, and I think the virtual thing should go, and the attendance should maintain itself. And that would at least limit some of the, for lack of a better word, bureaucracy amongst members.
And Marie, and then
Okay, so before the pandemic, there was invisible disabilities, right? They've always been there. And the reason why I say I don't like it is because I've seen people, they're disabled when there's meetings, but then every damn party and event, and they're gonna go to the one next month. How are you gonna go to a gala next month and you are on the disability on Zoom? That's what I'm talking about. You're not disabled. You're only disabled for our meetings. I'm sorry. And yes, you're right, there are invisible disabilities, and I have kids with autism. So that's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about, I see you on Instagram. You even mentioned you went to the gala, but you're disabled for our meeting. That's good.
Yeah, I got a few things to say. I think everyone here is pretty sensitive. Problem with sensitivity is when it gets in the way of the work, because I'm sensitive to the people we're trying to help. I'm not as sensitive to people, like, we have members who've joined and have like come to know meetings, and they have a disability, and I'm not questioning it. I guess I'm just wondering, the timing of everything is like you joined. It's different if you've been here for years and we know you and then you're going through something, whatever, but like there've been new people who've joined and they never come, then the cameras are off. As the licenses chair for many years, I would look around the table at my committee and not one person had a single laptop, computer, document in front of them. And then that goes to what you said, right? If you're gonna be virtual, I'm sorry, we all have computers, we can all get a webcam. You're calling in, then how are you even looking at any of the material? So you have a computer to look at the material, but you don't have a computer to, I mean, it's possible, you have a computer. I don't know a single computer anymore without a webcam, that's just a fact. The other thing, we've been talking about this for years, and I brought this up multiple times. With these public electeds, okay? I mean, this one, I don't know why we can't just ram through. That's the only one I'm really concerned about. If a public elected comes in person, we give them the respect of letting, and we've always done that. Despite the fact that they only show up usually when they're running for something, or, and then they give us crap about something we're not even interested in. But if they're not there in person and their liaison's not in person, they should go at the end of the meeting. They should, because I'll tell you why. They should be hearing what we have to say more than we should be having to hear what they have to say. So they come in, and here's the other thing. I've seen some electeds show up, we complain that they never come, then they show up and they talk about some thing that has really nothing to do with us, and then we all go, whoa, like, thank God you're here. I'm like, why are we doing, and you just said it, I think you said it, they work for us. I'm sick of it, I really am, I'm sick of having to listen to their, I don't understand it. That one, we should just like, they should go at the end of the meeting. I know the public have to go first, and I'm fine with that. I'd rather hear what my neighbor has to say. But I really don't care what someone's chief of staff has to say. Oh, I gotta hit all these points.
That they're reading off the newsletter, they all get.
And that's the other one, presentation. I don't need presentation where they're reading me the PowerPoint. Tell me something. Yeah, cause I'll tell you, if I don't wanna read the PowerPoint, I ain't listening to you read it. So that, I don't know what we're gonna do here. I mean, there's certain things on here that. I guess my question on some of them, and I won't get into specifics. It'd be helpful to know on some of them what problem there was and why it's solving that.
I like that idea.
Like.
Yeah, talk about it.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I got one. Well, I got one. All right, the officer term limits from 3 to 2 terms. What issue has there been with there being 3 terms?
I think I can speak to that a little bit. I think that just comes from having a person hold the spot too long.
Well, I hear you. My only pushback would be, and we live in a district where we had a congressperson I think, was it Charles Rangel?
Yes,
How many years was he our congressperson?
lot of years.
So but you can serve on Congress still today, right? You have like, you know, whether it's Republican or Democrat, they're there for 50 years. But I don't know if I have a problem with an officer on the board having, what is it, 6 years? Yeah, I don't know. That to me, unless we're gonna change the rules for everybody, you know, we had Bloomberg for how many years? You know?
Voting down in elections.
Yeah, so that's, I'll
Destroying an
push back
election.
on that one, to be honest.
Our last two elections were virtual. A real election, there's campaigning happening. So
And we should have real elections.
So
We
then
shouldn't
I
have
think, then I think if we're gonna talk, I'm sorry. If, I think if, because I can agree with you on that, then I think we do need to be a little bit more thorough in our election process, so folks can really vet who they're voting for.
I
'Cause
couldn't
you're right,
agree
we've been on Zoom and it's been, we haven't really
last
interrogated
6
people.
Let me piggyback on that one second.
We-
I just wanna say one thing. I agree with you completely because it wasn't our last election where we didn't have one person running against anybody. I'm all for there being elections and candidates to pick from. I'm just saying that if it's three and it's been three, I haven't seen a problem with three. And if we think it is a problem, let's have a real election and let people say, I'm enough with that part, whatever it is. That's all I'm saying.
That's a great campaign argument for the opposing.
And you can
person, right?
campaign off.
Like if I'm going again,
That's what you run on.
that's not a solution?
No, I say it's a simple solution to remember, right?
Yeah.
The board votes for the candidates.
Teach.
So if there's three, is maximum three. I know because I did two and I chose not to do the third one for personal reasons, right? Now, if you don't like the candidates, definitely don't vote for the candidate, right? And the board will police itself in terms of who they vote for. The campaigning process has always been more, you know, send the flyers, send the resume, send your thing, and then we do a questionnaire. And at one time when I was the elections chair, I did it a couple of times, but we actually had it in person. Where all the candidates were there and questions were asked and they were able to do that. And we did it at the not the Children's Aid Society over here at the.
No, to be honest, I think your election, your first time that you ran, I don't know, I'm sorry to interject, I think we have a discussion,
Yeah.
not cross talking. If you think I'm arguing, I'll stop.
No.
But I remember your election, you wanna talk about contention, that felt like it was Trump versus Kamala, right? And the process allowed this woman to become chair. And a lot of change happened since, some of the change that we're still experiencing to this day. And I think that, yes, some of us don't have that experience, especially with all due respect, the last two terms with the current chair. But when that election process happens and people run, for a free seat at that, by the way, we're all volunteers. It becomes the closest, it was actually very interesting for me to watch, to learn, to be a part of. This board, I'll tell you what's killing your whole law is the remote.
Yeah, I was gonna say that.
This is what's killing you.
That is, I think that is.
Yeah,
And
hold
just
on.
a
No, so-
follow-up, and just a follow-up, right? We can talk about the elections.
I love the election.
But, so can I ask a question?
Yes.
My question is, yes, I can, Angel, they say yes. I heard you.
Yo, it's 9:00.
Is there, I know that we discussed the bylaws committee. And traditionally, that's how we've done it, but you know, like was mentioned, there are different categories on how we can get there. Is there anything here that we can talk about, like just jumping off the page? Right, is something that maybe can be prioritized. That we can talk about to potentially move forward or discuss further. And those pieces might be the ones that are vetted by, let's say, this committee. I'm willing to do whatever work I have to do. And then the deeper dive, like I've been mentioned, could be done by a bylaws committee or whatever other process you feel is necessary.
So thank you for
Everyone
your
else.
question, Elsa. and for the conversation. I'll get to this in a moment, Henry. I would say the city charter compliance issues that are raised here are probably the easiest one for us to tackle first.
And what about the election cycle? Like if I created
That-
this, is that something that you would be open to? I will commit to going through 5 boroughs worth of bylaws to just see what their election period is. I know Manhattan is a certain way. Angel, do you know if all the borough presidents have that same cycle? Like, for instance, we get appointed in May. Some people might appoint differently, it's open.
It's always supposed to be April first.
Always.
Our borough presidents have been late the
It's
last
just
7
been,
years.
yeah. Okay, so it should be for all, yeah, okay, so I can commit to doing that and sending it to you, but
In terms of like chair officer terms, it varies. There's boards that have 1-year terms.
Right,
And then
exactly.
actually out of 3, you serve 3 years and you're out of there.
right,
And I think their thought is like, keep the leadership in rotation,
Mm-hmm.
people interested and motivated.
Yeah, CB9, I think, was it like 3 or 4?
right, so I'm not gonna look at that.
No, they were 2. 'cause
No,
Jerry
look
was
at
there.
that, I know.
CB4 is 1-year terms.
Terms, long enough.
Right.
So I think.
So I'm not looking at that, I'm just looking at when they put an elections committee or who to look at, the name
let
of
me
the
ask you-
committee, and when they do their election, that's.
Based on where we are now, this would be for 2027 election. Is that correct? As I'm
No.
reading this?
No,
Because we wouldn't have ample time to assemble an election committee for this year.
well, that's the point, if that's, I think, what the. I don't speak for anybody, I'm sorry, I'm speaking for myself, because I'm having a sugar issue, it's my understanding from what I'm understanding here, that this was put together because it's time sensitive, because there will be people that will be going off the board in 2027. So what could you affect now to affect the next election?
So I think the most logical conclusion is if you're going to then give people ample time to comment on this, would be to implement it in 27. However, you make the term of the officers to end when they fall off the board.
Okay, let me give you an example. So let me give you an example of what I mean, and then you can see about everything I just said. Let's say there's an election that's coming up, you're putting together an elections committee because people get voted on in January 2026, is that correct? January 2026 is
It ends in
the
December.
new term,
December.
right? So
December.
2025 ends your term. All of us, right?
All of us, yeah, a lot of us.
Right, so it ends everyone's term. Depending on what is put in place for any revisions on election, the election cycle, the voting and everything. If let's say, I'm gonna use myself, I wanna run for chair of the board for my 3rd term. But if I run come in January and I win, then I'm only gonna be serving a year and a half. Right?
Yep.
Because I'm gonna be off the board April 1st, 2027.
Whenever they appoint.
But if you look at the dates now, and let's say however you feel comfortable, if that is reviewed now to hit the 50-day.
Yeah.
Right, then you could conceivably change the term with this election coming, right, as a one-off. So that so that the person who gets voted in will have almost a complete 2-year cycle.
Can I vice versa that, Nelson?
And you
You
can
don't
vice
mind?
versa, yes.
So say you do run, right?
Uh-huh.
I'm just asking, right?
Just what
And
you're
I'm
at,
your competitor,
right,
and I use that for the entire
Right.
2 months of why you should not be the chair of the board. Because you're so selfish in what you want to do.
right, but you
In
know
your
what?
empowerment,
But they know me, so they have the right to vote for me.
and that's their
Or
choice.
not. Exactly,
So why are we taking it away and want to push it? Election cycles are in November for no other reason than why everybody else runs in November. I don't think there's a strategy. I mean, unless I'm, someone here's an election guru, I'm not.
No, I'm
I
not.
think November everyone votes, so then the new year starts with the new guy, right? Every office. we're stuck on term limits because members will be removed. Great, I know if I'm running against that member that's leaving, that's gonna be a field day. But I mean, again, that's if the campaign and the elections process actually happens. And then second to that, which we addressed that in the bylaws committee, because it's not only about cycles, what if the person just, God forbid, dies? There's this thing called the special elections process. So I'm just saying that answers on both ends. That's why I get that the terms are new, but then maybe if we're open to the other avenues that already exist in the law, where, the one-offs of the few members that are here that are going to term out, that gives some real ample opportunity to the newer members that are trying to step up.
All right.
It's time for grandpa or grandma, excuse me, to sit down. They've been in the seat too long.
Don't say that, because I'm just.
Now, I'm about to be a grandpa. My point, I let the process with diplomatic and democratic, I do get it, there's conspiracy theories, but,
Nelson, thank you for that.
Sorry.
I think I would
Open
want
thought.
to take this, given the timeline. I think it should go to general counsel to ask on what they advise to the city for that, because even if it were to pass, we wouldn't vote until June, and that's exactly when the committee is, and we already have existing bylaws. And so I think I'd want to take that to them.
All right.
Yes, Jess.
So I just wanted to respond to that because I think it's a good point. I think the problem is that it's an ongoing problem. It's something that's gonna be every year for the rest of time, unless the powers that be determine that it isn't. And the goal is to solve it up front, because we don't want to have election after election where we have seasoned board members who are coming up to the end of their term, which is gonna happen probably every election, that where we have to do a special election for at least one seat every year. Like that, the goal is to make our lives easier and to streamline the processes of the board. It's not to have an election tomorrow so that we can, kick whoever is in office out of office. It's to align a process so that we can do our work effectively. Because imagine, we're here right now and it's the end of, Xavier and I's term limit. And now y'all, we're piecing out, and what are you guys gonna do? Good luck having a special election. I mean, I'm sure y'all will figure it out, but it's we're trying to proactively avoid really heinous problems that are coming out of something that we are unavoidably locked within. And I just wanna know, Xavier, you mentioned pushing it to 2027, but that doesn't. Oh, that's 2 years from now.
Biennial, because in the biennial
So,
meeting.
so we'd have, okay,
So you could easily, and this is why I want to take it to city law and to council, is we could easily just make whoever, if it's someone who's term limited out, you put an exception for the one-off and saying at the end of it, if they term out, right, then and then it starts in 2027. Because it would align with that case, so.
then someone would be serving for a year or two.
We would just have the election, no, you just have the elections early.
So then what would happen? So, okay, so you have the elections earlier and that would.
We'll just use Nilsa as again. Nilsa runs November, right? She wins and she's terming out, right? But our next election will not be in November of 27, it'll be in June of 27. So that overlap would be there.
Right. And the other point I want to make is that there's no issue with taking motions on things once we've had ample time to review it. And that includes the full board. We've now spoken about this for 2 months, and I understand that you all have just gotten this last night. And the goal for me is that y'all take the time to review the city charter, which is not a private document, to review our current bylaws, and take a look at these recommendations, because I would say 99% of them are definitely not contentious. It's really hoping to help make the work of our board more efficient. And then ideally, we could provide it to the full board this month, just to have everybody take a look at whatever the suggestions are. And maybe people have more suggestions, and then we provide a timeline to say, we need to make these, suggestions by X. And I don't think there's any problem with that. We need to move forward, and I don't think pushing it just because we don't have time to review it, or, of course, we want to get it checked with the powers that be in terms of legality, but there's no reason to delay, in my opinion.
So Jason.
I just want to respond, and I don't disagree with you, Jessica. I question, not my logic, it's not my concern. Even in land use, we get 60 to 90 days and we do pre-ULUP. It's just outline what the fires are, which the ones I've heard, I can give the water. And if I can give the water, that's where I'm thinking of, and I don't consider myself a legal person. And just think of this, and maybe Angel could help. I don't know about, I thought this board was staggered in its appointment.
It is,
Right.
25 are staggered.
So that, I get the concern. I guess I need to see them now. That's it. I think about running out 12 months, I see 50 people on, 25 on. Xavier, Nilsa, yourself,
We're gone.
super rare cases. You guys and yourself are rare. That's not the standard of a 50 board member that's gonna be, running for chair.
Right.
With all due respect, he might run for chair now and get destroyed by the next person that goes against him.
Right.
Does,
No, nobody, it's not, and it's not about anyone. It's
yeah,
not
no, I
about
know, I'm
anyone.
trying to understand,
It's
I
about
wanna
the-
see what this gap is that's creating this concern that, because you're terming out, because of new term limits. That,
Well,
that
the
the,
board is-
exactly, that the board is gonna collapse because of that.
Well,
So,
That's what it sounds like, we gotta change the law.
So, and then,
I have one here, so I would like to know the reason why one of these proposed changes are on this
I asked
list.
a question.
I know, yeah, hold on. So,
I'm sorry, it was no disrespect, I asked a question.
was that a question to me
It
or?
was it was a discussion about the staggering, right? If it doesn't fix it, do we need to just do a little more? I don't,
So it's based on whether you've served at 8 or 10, and the first people who will start falling off are those that have already been on the board for 10 or more years. Okay, and so who falls in that category. And yeah,
Okay. Yes,
I'm listening,
so the next
just
term,
doing the math.
yeah, super easy. The next term starts January 2026,
right.
runs through December 2027. Term limits will kick members that are up for term limits off April 1st, technically. So if you're elected to an office to serve through December of 2027, you'll only be able to serve until April 1st of 2027.
Right.
So then those remaining months will be vacant. That's what this thing is looking to address, or to shorten that period. So instead of it being whatever that is.
And that issue's
8
in
months.
perpetuity?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That'll be a consistent
Yeah, that's what.
statistical fraction.
It'll keep happening each time that a person, an officer's term limits,
It's.
like come up while they're in office.
so again, it depends on when you got appointed. And
Yeah.
this next reappointment, those people have been on 10 or more years. In 2 years' time, they will cycle off. Okay, so that's, you go, yes.
Not 10. So,
It's
so,
about 8.
yeah. So
12, yeah.
term limits are 8, except for people that were appointed in 2020.
Yeah.
There's one exception.
That's the.
And those guys get 5, so they get 10 years.
Yeah,
Right.
so, thank you,
Do you
thank
find
you.
out about me?
Yeah, I was trying to.
Wait, say that again about the 2020?
After tonight, I want to get.
So when term limits were enacted, they were enacted to begin as of 2019. So if you were appointed April 1st of 2019, you get to serve 4 years.
4 terms.
4 terms, sorry, thank you. The only exception, back to your staggered question, is if you were appointed April 1st of 2020, then you're eligible for 5 terms.
Got it.
Only that year.
That's it.
Then 2021, 4 years, 2022, 4 years, I mean, 4 terms, 4 terms.
Yeah, so, Anne Marie and then Michelle, and then
Let them go one, let me do it.
Michelle.
I thought you meant the members, let them go.
I'll put 2 things. Nilsa, I do want to see I know it would be a lot of work, but I do want to see.
So you can see the
Appreciate
whole-
it.
yeah.
Yes, the other thing is that the removal of membership requirements for district needs and budget committee, I thought the district needs and budget committee, had a whole bunch of changes to it, so that it was no longer, vice president, vice chair, I'm sorry,
That's not in the bylaws, so this is just an old part of the bylaws that no longer applies.
Yeah, well, I remember when we added that, it was just to create the committee.
Yeah, so,
We want to
So-
take it away as a standing committee? I don't
We
understand.
want to keep the committee, right?
yeah, the committee stays.
Okay,
yeah.
I want to make sure of that.
So like, I printed out the bylaws, flip to page 21, where it says committee on the city, review the city budget. Let me know when you're there.
Okay.
Yeah, so, you see it's crossed off D. So it indicates that the committee shall consist of no fewer than 3 members. This is unnecessary. No committee. can
No
have less than
committee,
3 members.
yeah.
So it's unnecessary. So every committee has to be a minimum of 3 board members, not including public members.
Mhm.
I don't know why that was put in there.
Is it added?
I'm sure somebody thought of it, but. yeah.
I think we copy and paste.
Okay.
You want me to be honest, 'cause I was going with.
Thank you.
Asher, you had a
Can I
question?
propose something, because I'm not, like, we're going in circles, and to be honest, we can't just read this and say it's gonna happen. Can we send this? Is it possible? I don't see what would be the problem with sending this out to the full board, just so everyone has it. And then that's it, because we're sitting here like going in circles.
Don't it have to be a part of the minutes for this meeting?
So, I think the first question that was raised is which items could we pull out that we could address more readily? And I think I would like to see this committee come back with those recommendations when we next meet. And then the rest can be bumped out to the bylaws committee, the bylaws and charter committee. Yes.
But to Asher's point, this is gonna be a part of the minutes for next month, right? Like when we go to full board next week, the executive's gonna have their minutes there. This was presented under old business. This should be a part of the minute package. Under our opens meeting law. Am I missing something?
So, Angel.
It can be, but I think we have to be very clear that it's not up for a vote.
I don't disagree. I think we're gonna still have this drama regardless, especially with but the faster, the faster we start notifying the members.
So at this point, just like so people are aware and they wanna look and get some of their own ideas and mark this up.
I agree. It should
Then
be
you
a part of the
can-
minutes.
I'm saying just to cover our.
Yeah, I
our
get
left
you.
eye.
Yeah, absolutely.
I have
Let's do it.
Well, the meeting is recorded, Ashley. We're good.
So two things, I'm just jumping back a little bit,
It's on YouTube.
so on elections, I think the elections committee nominating thing should be looked at a bit more. It's a lot of words to say absolutely nothing. And the reality of the elections committee is that other than the years that we did those forums and all that stuff, the committee doesn't really do anything. So why waste other people's time? Maybe figure out a way for it to be actually doing something, fine, or just
A nomination.
move it to reflect actually what the actual actions have been or should be for that committee. And then the other thing, in terms of terms, and this might run afoul, but I'll say it anyway. Perhaps something to consider to get around the term limit thing is to put in that, eligibility requirements for candidates. So if you're only eligible to run if you can serve the full 2 years.
I agree.
I love that.
That kills that whole debate.
I just thought of that.
In perpetuity.
So,
After 10 years, it's not gonna be a problem.
So, just to backtrack, so I'm gonna do this, cause some people asked me to.
Thank you.
No matter if you don't want to.
I didn't ask you. No,
And,
you vote.
and so we're coming back, just to be clear, you're saying that we're coming back next month with our suggestions of what we think can be looked at and decided by this committee, and then the deeper dives would be the bylaws? Did I
Yes, anything,
understand that correct?
yes, correct. Anything
Okay.
that would require deeper
Well,
dive,
Erica
may have
has
questions with
something.
legal or law, they should go to the bylaws and charter committee.
And Angel expressed how to change it, right? We'll get you to a resolution.
Yeah.
For some of
could.
those
Something,
items.
something this comprehensive should go through.
But we could,
Right.
is the point.
To get it on the floor, but it's actually changing that still has to do the whole thing.
Yeah, for the short,
Yeah.
So for the if it's 20 items. And 15 go to the committee, figuratively speaking, because I don't disagree, we could be here all night. But 5 items we know next month that we gotta address, it's the end of the world, which most of what we talked about ain't here the end of the world, then we address that next month.
Yeah.
And we can collaborate.
I think having the conversation is important. I'm not hearing anything that's, the sky is falling necessarily. But I think Nilsa doing her homework, I'm gonna go to city law and general counsel to raise the questions that will.
You know what, I'll just run for chair this year and everybody, don't worry about it. All right?
Wait, let me just pick, she have her hand.
Rosa was joking.
And so,
You only need the rules when.
and so, like, I know Jessica's been really good, because I can't do it. Jessica's been really good about creating documents, so I'm not suggesting Jessica do it. No, I'm not, but in order to be more prepped for the conversation next month,
Happy to do it.
is there's, oh, like, the way we can put in what we feel should be addressed by us, and then put and defer everything else to the bylaws committee, so that when we come in, we're not actually maybe going around the table and saying, what were your three, and then maybe we can get more substances, accomplishments, something I don't even know about, was the right word.
So I think it would be helpful for us to set up a master document that
Yeah.
those things that are of highest priority, mainly, what we've addressed, like the city charter components, that says
Right, that's.
easy, low hanging fruit.
Yeah.
Color.
There are, things like the removal of the special committee, that's an easy low hanging fruit. The specificity, and I do think that with the attendance every 6 months, it needs to be clarified, because keep in mind, a 6 month period, January to June, it's very easy. September, so when we have July to December, we only have 4 meetings, so of those required 2/3, that changes the math slightly, so. So, no, or is it 4 still?
Huh?
You'd be required to do 4, or
No,
just 3.
it's any 6 month period.
Within any 6 month period, so that.
I would
How does that work?
2 meetings, right?
I'm not gonna.
go,
So, in terms of the, checking on the 6 month thing, right, you do not have to take my word for it. If you go to the board member resources page on the website, and you scroll down to the handbook for community board members. In there, it has sections from the charter, in the charter's language, that says the 6 month thing.
Okay.
And that's what the proposal is to align ourselves with that. As well, we've been wrong, I don't know when it started, but it was always there.
50 years ago.
So whatever, and it's just aligning with the proper rule, and it's in there, you can see for yourself.
someone who's gonna get kicked off.
And it's still, and it's actually works better and breaks your head less, for some reason. I don't know, you can't figure out 2/3 of 12, but 2/3 of 6, it's the same thing, it's still the 4. Right, it's still the 4, you missed 4, whatever, but then, at least we don't have the conversation about how to figure out a fraction of 12.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Okay, just building on what Nelsa suggested, thank you for Nelsa, for taking a look at other people's bylaws. First question is, I don't see why we can't establish a bylaws committee immediately, and that they can begin work now, and that the work of our committee this next month, bringing forward the most, critical elements, can inform their clarification in, whether it's working off this document or starting fresh, whatever the bylaws committee wants to do, so that we have the ability, at the very least, to provide a document within the 50 days required for like a final document. So it would be the second version of the document that the board sees, so that they can have the 50 days to review before a June full board. So when are we setting up the bylaws committee was my question.
And like I said at the beginning of the meeting, an announcement will be made, and then will be an open for people to submit their names who want.
When will the announcement be made?
Full board,
Okay,
so,
Was
and that,
just trying to get clarity. This will take a lifetime to get done.
So well, even with the committee, what's the other group you said? You said bylaws and
charter,
charter.
because there are charter revisions, as I said at the beginning of the meeting, that are going on with.
Put all the lawyers in there,
speakers
please.
and the mayors, yes.
And Sam,
So I have, I'm sorry, I
Shane.
just have a clarification, my friend, I have a clarification. Is it 4, we're all my friends. 4 meetings, absences from like both from full board and committee meeting, meaning like 2 and 2,
Can I?
or 4 for each? Because right now we're just doing the process for 2 members that have 4 made from full board only.
I can answer that. It changes the language to remove it from both committees' requirements. So if you meet the 4 unexcused absences for one committee, then you are able to be brought forward for the district, the due process. So it changes it from both to one.
It makes it stricter and more clear.
That's correct.
That's it.
But I'm still not clear.
You 4 from any
Any
committee.
committee that you
We gotta
serve on.
do homework.
1 second, 1 second.
Any committee, so if it's this committee, if it's any other committee, if you serve on 4 committees, which I serve on 4 committees. Any one of those 4 committees, if I hit 4 absences, I can be brought forward. It doesn't have to be the combination, it doesn't have to be some weird math that we have to do. Did you hit 4 on any committee that you are a member on?
Can I?
That I get,
Adam,
however, is it 2 like 2 absences from this committee?
No.
And it's.
One
it's
committee,
serious.
One committee.
Yep.
I think the
for-
simplest way to say it is, we treat every committee the way we treat full board right now. That's
Exactly,
it.
that, just making every committee.
Dave,
the
let
same.
me say something.
They still.
Yeah, Marie.
Next month.
All right, so I wanna know the reason why this is on a proposal of change. Requirement that officers of the board must step down and actively running for political office. I disagree with that.
This is the conversation that came up at the last committee meeting, because I think many people have identified, whether right or wrong, and everyone can have their opinion, that the community board is often used as a platform for people to run for political office. And I don't think that it should, people shouldn't be allowed to run for political office. The point that we raised at the last meeting was that when someone is running for office and they hold a critical position on the community board, that it prevents certain work from being done, and it basically leaves the board without the leadership that it needs to do the work that it needs to do. And so all it's saying is that instead, and you can still run for office, you just can't be the chair, the vice chair, the treasurer, or the secretary of the board.
I disagree with that. Rosa is the secretary and she's running right now, and she's here. I think it's the person. I think it has to do with the person himself.
But you can't get in first.
That's
That's just-
bad.
I don't.
And it's also constitutional law, like Manhattan Borough President is running for controller. You can't tell me, hey, you cannot be the Manhattan Borough President, you're running for controller.
Yeah.
Right? So
And if
I am all about doing the work. I don't care about anybody else. I'm here and will continue to be here, whatever the situation will happen. Oh, no.
Again, this is not about.
So can I ask y'all both a question? Can I ask both of y'all?
I just-
questions? What do we do then? What do we do
Nobody
then?
said anything.
What do we do then if we end up with an officer who cannot fulfill their role because of their campaign? What do we do about that role, the work that they are supposed to
Rose
do?
is doing her role.
Now, so Rose is an exception, but when you are running and you can't be present for meetings, or your leadership just is horrible because of your attention being taken away.
You can do a vote of no confidence.
We can, but
And
what we're
on-
trying to
and
get,
on-
we're trying to put in the bylaw something to prevent us from getting there. So that was where that came.
I think the law, and if you don't mind, I could add, the law also says that if you're becoming of a member, so if you get the body enough 2/3 that feel that way, we removed. I actually was around when we voted on a chair for no confidence.
We got a Christmas team.
You know, it was contentious, it gets political, it's
And that's the
okay.
reason. We're trying to avoid that.
The chair, but if the membership is committed, if we're active, that chair will step down willingly.
I
Right?
Disagree.
I totally disagree. They will step down. Nobody's stepping down from power nowhere unless you make them step
I
down.
mean, we haven't had anyone, I mean, I know when you ran the city, I'm sorry to use you as an example, you were here, you led all the
Disagree.
meetings.
Yeah,
unfortunately.
yeah,
So
that's not a good example.
no, and I listened to the committee minutes, and I think this is
What's
something.
here then?
I fundamentally don't agree with some of those opinions of mine. That's not what this is about. The fact is that it was raised as a legal issue, and we addressed it at the last iteration and addressed it earlier this meeting. That the general counsel, and also city law had already applied on this issue, and I appreciate the moment striking it, but then notes are taken.
I still think we should follow up on the legality of it because it has been brought up by not just members in this committee, but by other members of this board and is something that has been contentious and has prevented us from doing work in the past. And we could do a vote of no confidence, but I guarantee you, nobody wants to see it come to that. So we're just trying to avoid it. That's all it is.
And no one's gonna vote in no confidence on a
But-
person that is very popular, who has influence already, who has already been serving. Because we saw that when Ashland to make a motion last week or last month for Claudia, and no one really wanted to say nothing, and that's because we all have love for this person.
Right.
So once you get to a certain place in your role, that voting of confidence is damn near impossible to come across. Ain't nobody,
It's never here.
but no one, but then no one
Just made it.
you made my point, because no one wanted, no, but, no, listen, Emma. What I'm saying is that no one wanted to vote against Claudia, even though we all know she hasn't been here. And that was because of the love we personally have for her. If we have a chair or a vice chair officer who has that same influence over the board, that vote, no one's gonna vote with no confidence against them because they're going for a higher seat. People may look at that as a good thing, you know what I'm saying?
Right.
But that affects the work of the board, and that's what we're talking about.
And I think people.
We also had I'm sorry, because I held this thought, we've had success with chairs running for office. This board particularly has members that became. That's what we're having a discussion. Some people, we hear the side that is for it, and I can hear the side that's not for it as well, right? I'm moderate on this. I don't care either way as an activist, but I do always concern myself with oppression and communism in general, right? And if I'm gonna say that someone can't do something because they're not capable of it, you allow the election process to have some entertainment, but I don't disagree that if the person's in a position of power already. I mean, but is that power?
It's really not.
It's-
It's really not. I'm sorry.
Rosa, and then Michelle.
Sorry.
Rosa.
I'm just saying like, for example, I know I am the exception, right? But it still feels like you violating my rights, right? Because I wanna do whatever I want. I'm here still volunteering my day, my evening. Exactly, exactly. And I have kids and I'm in all the boards. And I work, I own my own business. And I also have a position. I am also the Department of Education. So there's like, now I feel like oppressed and I don't think, well, not me again. But I just feel like it's a violation of my human rights and constitutional law.
Okay, then Michelle.
The problem is when we make it too personal, right?
Amen.
No, and because like, there are examples, I'm sure, where somebody was in power running for something and they weren't able to fulfill their duty. But then there are people who are able to do that, right? So you can't make that decision then based off of those circumstances, because there are different ones. I think, since we're talking about this one, like the same argument I made for the, 3 terms as opposed to 2, if you could serve in Congress unlimited. My argument here would be like, we just watched a national election in this country where like the vice presidents both had, one was a governor, right? And the other one was what, a senator or something? They didn't, as far as I know, Tim Walz is still the governor of Minnesota, right? He did not step down. He was Minnesota was somehow able to govern itself without Tim Walz being its governor. And I just use him as the most recent example. So, just like, if we're doing this at much higher levels of government, I don't know why we're all of a sudden gonna be more strict than we are there. And that takes the personalness out of it. I think that for whatever reason, this country's decided at the highest level that you can run for something and still keep your current office. And I agree with you, Isaac. I do. No, and I agree with what you're saying. And, you made his point, because what he was saying is, Claudia is a great person. I love Claudia, but she was never here and we couldn't vote her off. So imagine now, if it was somebody that we all love, who was here, but then wasn't really doing anything, how much harder would that be to vote off, if they were right there in your face all the time? That's what he was saying. It becomes
But I didn't
difficult.
finish with Claudia.
Well, that's just an example.
Wasn't only about her running for elected and became an elected the district leader. She has kids, she has a job, she's the president of Washington Housing.
Good.
She has a lot of things going on, so it could have been that, not just because she was running, just like Stephanie works with the Moran Group, they do a lot of lobbying. It could have been that was stopping her from coming here, and not that she was a state committee woman. You see what I'm saying?
Oh, no, no.
Other things.
That's
Not
not,
that should be a reason why they should.
no,
Yeah,
that's not what he was
Yeah,
saying.
that was,
Michelle and then.
yeah, look, but it's okay. I think we understand.
I just want to have it for the record that if once you're applying for one job, does not mean that you have to give up your other job. I mean, it's just, a job application, you don't know if you're gonna get the job. You fire yourself from the one that you have, that makes no sense. I'm just gonna add that.
Angel, that's Melissa.
I think you guys are all proving the point of why it should be considered, over and over and over and over again. So one, you should be comfortable debating and even having passionate debates, but you should try to refrain from taking it personally.
Yes.
When you set a rule, you set a rule for an abstract group of people and abstract individuals, right? There are a myriad of cases where chairs of boards have completely abused their authority on community boards. A myriad. So what you do is you think of the worst case scenario and you plan for that to avoid that, so that when that occasion arises, you're not then stuck. Right? You all have an opinion of Xavier now, and you feel a certain way about Xavier now. Well, tomorrow comes, what's the opposite of Superman?
I don't know.
Right, so Bizarro Xavier comes tomorrow. And then you're stuck.
That's cool, though.
Then you're stuck, right? So, and it's just a debate, bounce it around, throw it away. But have the conversation, but think of the potential worst case scenario, because then when you don't put protections in place, you run into issues. A while back, we had such a problem. And no one was budging because, what do they call that? Elected deference. And the board went right in the bleep bleep. And it took a massive effort to wake the board up, not just to remove that person. They weren't removed, they were defeated. To wake the board up because the board was asleep. I'm talking fires everywhere, and nobody would budge because, oh, I know that person. And nothing. So, not to say, don't think about it as like, oh, well, I don't want to do anything that's gonna affect Xavier or affect Rosa or affect, whoever the other officer is, forget. No, think about it as this random person you never thought of. That could be a nightmare. How do we protect against that? Right? That's what you should think of. Now, you may not want to do it, and certain good points were made about other elected offices can run for office, it's fine. Like I said, throw it away, but have the debate, but think about the potential problems that you could arise. That I meet with the other 58 district managers monthly. And all I hear are nightmares. There are things that chairs do you wouldn't imagine. Khalid came from a board that is notorious. You can look it up yourself. Notorious for all kinds of wildness because of this chair, that chair. He had a series of chairs, that poor guy. And so I rescued him. Right, so like, that's what you kind of think of, right? Like, all right, look, we got it, I feel a certain way about Xavier, I'm cool with Xavier, I don't want to risk anything with Xavier, fine. But you can have the opposite, and then you're just stuck, like this board, a few cycles ago, was stuck. Like, oh no, now what do we do? And it took a former member just throwing a Molotov cocktail into it to wake everybody up. And then we shook it around, and then we got better. But we weren't better for a long time, that's all, throw it away if you want, but I'm just saying.
Anne Marie, actually.
Say, I wasn't taking it personal because I love Rosa and I love Xavier. It's what I see, my experience, their hard work, the dedication. But it's the reason why I feel this is not what I want. I would disagree. But it's not because I care, I like them, care or whatever. I still recorded it. I feel pulled up on it. I love them too. It's just my experience of what I see in terms of what they've been doing for the board, all the committees.
Yeah, but I think, sorry, but I think Claudia was brought up, because of attendance, not because of her like
Yeah,
office.
it was a
Just,
judgment.
No, but she wasn't, but that would pertain to her too.
yeah, sure, but I don't think that's why her name was raised. I think her name was raised a couple minutes ago because the attendance was so poor and because of the familiarity with that person, there was a reluctance in removing them. Because, not because of that, but not the rest of the table wasn't agreeing with.
Actually,
Nobody raised their hand.
I just wanna remind everyone that we're volunteers. As volunteers, we choose to be here, and when you volunteer to do something, you choose to accept all the responsibilities here. I'm not talking about people running for political office. I'm talking about attendance as a whole in this minute. Cause I think it should more be that if you cannot, once again, if you cannot do the duties of the duties of, like, I'm tired, the duties of what you sign up for, you should not be here. That should be point blank. What should be done, regardless of any personal feelings you have about anyone, if someone does not do the duties that they have to do, they should not be here. But also, we should make sure that people know what they're signing up for. Like, people know what they're signing up for, but make it, at this point, it's like, make it like abundantly clear, and this is part of the reason why I want this sent out to the full board. So that way they can see not just the proposed, but what we have. Because I could tell you, half of them people in that, on this board have not read the bylaws. And it's insane, and it shouldn't be Angel or the staff having to send out a little. I appreciate that tendency, Mal, I'll keep bringing that up because that's a key example that sticks in my mind. That shouldn't have had to been sent out. And the fact that it was sent out and we're still having these problems is a problem.
Nelson and Jess.
So I just wanna ask a question, and I probably knew the answer before the meeting, but for the discussion, I think I don't know the answer anymore. So we were talking about how you can be on the board and you can run, right, for another position, an elected position. And whatever discussions happen here, happen here. There's nothing from the city to preclude a person on the board, like I'll use Rosa, since Rosa was brought up, to run for something. And then if she wins, right, then she would be, let's say, the district leader as well as that. Is there anything that precludes us from taking a position anti that? Like, you know how there's the discussion, well, you know, if you are on the board and you wanna, let's say I'm the treasurer, and I wanna run for city council, that I have to, let's say, resign my treasurer position to run for city council. Is there anything that keeps us from putting something like that in our bylaws because the city accepts that you can do it?
I think that's the question that Xavier's gonna pursue.
That's the question you're gonna ask? Did I miss that one? Take it back. Goodbye.
It's fine, when you say it out loud, it sounds less free, so I mean.
No, sorry.
No more. Back to work.
I am gonna follow up with it.
Okay.
However, as you opined in the meeting last month, is that it was previously addressed by the general counsel and city law that you can't limit the board members that were previously determined, but I will go back to on that. Yes.
Could I ask an amendment, could I add an amendment to that, as a non-member member? In that question, could you also ask if someone can be prohibited from running for two offices at the same time, not sitting in the officer seat and running for something else. But running for an officer seat and running for an elected office. You ask them that.
I think,
Running for.
So like running and running for council at the same.
Yeah.
Running for also.
Well, what if you were incumbent?
No, I don't know, I'm asking.
No, I'm saying,
but if you were incumbent, would that still count? I don't know.
So Angel, just so I'm clear, so Andrea Gordillo, the chair of CB3, is running for council, so you want me to ask?
And
that-
she's also running for reelection as chair?
Well, potentially, I don't know if she want me to ask in a
Can
hypothetical.
you run simultaneously?
Yeah.
For an officer role on the board while running for an elected office? on the
That's a
board?
good question, like, so, can I add on to that? Like, what, the question I would think is, can you run for two offices, like, can I run for mayor and governor at the same time?
No.
Could I do that? I don't know.
But it's
That's what I'm saying, these are great this is probably the best meeting of the whole fucking meeting. I learned more in the last 10 minutes than the last 3 hours.
You mean, not the first 30?
We covered a
I
bunch
took
of
that
issues,
class 3 times.
guys, so we covered a bunch of issues.
no,
Yeah, sorry.
that's okay. I just wanted to say in regards to that item, in the spirit of some of the other changes, specifically under the adjustments to the duties of the chairperson, the spirit was that if you really look at the bylaws, the chair can do anything almost all the time without any stopgap. And I thought coming into the board that the other officers and our executive committee would be agents of change to work with the chair in a collaborative way towards any given item, right? I think the reality that I think when you read the bylaws, there's a lot of, the chair can bilaterally do like a lot of things on their own. And I think that's, could be a really great thing. And again, going back to Angel's point of, you have to think of the worst situation. Like the worst situation that I can come up with is a chair that is not, collaborating with our fellow leaders and in partnership towards anything. And of course, there are always going to be things, which is why it is stated in certain ways in the bylaws that the chair makes decision X. And that's why the chair is there. The chair is the leader of the board, right? But some of when you review this, when you look at the adjustments to the duties of the chairperson, when we discussed this, there were conversations of this person was added as a public member to my committee without any conversation with me. My vice chair was selected without any conversation of me, and I'm the chair of the committee. This treasurer is putting forward, the thing that had the budget that has no conversation with the district manager. So there's all these things that I think working as the leaders of our board, we know the collaboration and the partnership that goes into making an effective working situation on this volunteer board, and providing a little bit of guidance in the bylaws to allow for the inclusion of specific key members as it relates to specific decisions that are being made, I think is a good, 90% of the way there on that requirements of officers of the board must step down, because the whole point of that is that and I don't even honestly apply it to this, like, if I could write and say chair of the board must step down if actively running for political office, I would say that. I think that's a little too specific, because, I think we could go around, if the treasurer stopped doing their job, we can figure it out. We'll be okay. If the vice chair stops doing their job, the secretary, we can figure that out. But when the chair of the board is not present and is focusing attention on another thing as a priority, then it makes it impossible for the community board to do really specific, really valuable and necessary things. And that's really why this is on here. So, but you would think that.
You would, that's what I was gonna.
It's not real.
Not
I'm
if,
telling you.
not if the vice chair does work and then the chair comes back and just trumps all of that because they're the chair. This is like, we're moving backwards.
I can't appoint a public member. I can't make changes to the chairs. I can't, the vice chair really, the role is almost like a fun time to sit and every once in a while provide a report.
It's the same as the vice president.
Yeah.
But that's democracy.
Yeah.
And then,
I agree in the sense of it, not specific to this, board or anything. I just don't know if. There should be stopgaps. There shouldn't be absolute power. There should maybe be mechanisms in place that protect that. Or I agree with you that, you know, if a vice chair or whatever is being appointed at the committee, but maybe this is an opportunity then to specifically state out those things and maybe limit the power of the chair and give the vice chair more power.
Yeah,
But
that's what I'm
But
hearing.
my pushback on these two specific things, and I'll say it from some experience here. Like, I don't want another election or elections where we just have 5 people on the ballot and no one's running against them. And we're having a hard enough time, so I don't know, I feel like these things might give us less options than more options. I think we should have options on who we vote for, and I think that, you know, you could be doing a great job as chair for 2 terms, and you deserve a shot at a 3rd term. I also agree, you could be running for something, and then your second in command is kind of handcuffed. And so then what do we do to maybe protect that as opposed to just saying, all right, if you're running for something, get off? How do we say, you know, the second has more power all the time, and so then they can make those decisions if you're not there. Like if you don't come, I don't know. These are just ideas. I think this might be, I don't know. I agree with everything you're saying. I just think maybe there are other ways to accomplish it.
Fair point.
Yeah, sure.
And
And then Angel.
I'm hearing people's concerns, what if, instead of it being, everyone can upset about, running for office.
Already crossed it.
I know, okay, yeah, I have a suggestion. What if
Everything else.
if the chair isn't there? What if it's that the vice chair, if we get to assume the full chair's responsibilities, like everything that the chair can do? If the chair is not able to be there.
I love that change.
So I was,
A lot of organizational bylaws be like that.
yeah, in item C of the law, if we add some language there, when the chair is MIA, just like if the chair. I don't know, say the chair would have won and then left.
Yeah.
Then the vice chair automatically becomes chair. So if the chair is absent or for that month, say like last month. In last month, the chair was absent, the vice chair should have the authority for that month to be chair.
So just to speak on this.
Cause I get it, we don't wanna handcuff, I'm sorry, we're not, just, I feel like we don't wanna be discriminatory, but we also don't wanna provide absolute power. If that makes sense.
So I think, you know, if there is, huh? Oh, Angel, so yeah. If there's an instance that say someone's incapacitated and hospitalized, it being a temporary situation, like that's, say you are. That would be an instance, something like that. Accessibility, I think it comes to the question, I think to Dan's point, there's a better way to codify the language. But I think, you know, we get into sticky territory there, but I think we should have a fleshed out language on that. Angel.
Yeah, I was gonna say, so I think, you know, like I was saying before about the worst case scenario, right? There's also, so like, I've already said it, there's also responsibility on the board and its membership to make it so, to actually fulfill its functions and do its jobs, right? So like my suggestion about removing the assistant positions, I've been here 15 years, right? And with very few exceptions, those positions have done diddly. Diddly.
Yes.
Diddly. Right?
You were screwed.
One exception.
Let him finish, let him finish.
And frankly, a lot of the stuff that is done by the staff for the officers is because those officers didn't do it. Similarly, a lot of the stuff that the chair is assigned to do in the bylaws is because nobody else was doing it. So the last time we had this bylaws conversations, I suggested copying an idea from another board. And I have made the suggestion of creating the budget committee. I said, well, then you can give the vice chair the responsibility of being in charge of the budget committee. Right, and then that's when we had the idea of like, and then make all the vice chairs the members of the committee, but you know, that worked gangbusters, because none of the vice chairs showed up. So we backed off, don't take this personal, it's a fact. okay, it's a fact, the
No,
work wasn't done,
I'm gonna back Angel on this. 'cause
Right,
Me and I
work
talked
wasn't
about
done.
this
Yeah.
ad nauseam.
ad nauseam. So there's, I think there's ways to add in stuff. I would suggest thinking about ways to add in pieces and it's like, in addition to what's written in this proposal. To have more work for other people to do. That could also help the chair.
Yeah.
Versus abdicating responsibility, and then when you look, oh, well, the chair has everything to do. So those of you that have been around for a while, remember Frances Mastrota. If you were here for a Frances meeting, you would think she was a dictator. Because she would stand there and talk for the entire 2 hours by herself, but it wasn't because she wanted to. It's because she had to, because the members wouldn't say anything, right? So if the members had spoken up and, chimed in, it's a much better meeting, it's much more enjoyable membership. So perhaps looking at, when you're thinking about this stuff, thinking about it like, okay, how there's, the chair is doing per this 25 things. Do they have to do all 25? Can we do 5 of these? Right? Like, can we handle the budget committee thing? Can we handle the other thing? Like, I've had this conversation with this former treasurer right there. Tell me if I'm lying. I've had the conversation about the treasurer stuff for years. The treasurer's role, right? And I'm saying it in front of him, because we're cool, is to oversee that I'm not screwing up the money.
That's it.
That's it.
Mhm.
The last treasurer did nothing. Nothing, right? And if the actual role, this is not, I didn't mean to throw shade, that was rude. If the actual responsibility is the district manager maintains the board budget, right? Okay, cool. It is totally valid for someone to look over my shoulder. So then the description for the treasurer should say that, not look over my shoulder, but find better language. But essentially that, make sure I'm not blowing it. Right? If I'm keeping the attendance to aid Rosa, then Rosa's job is make sure I'm not screwing it up. Hey, Andrew, you know what? Actually, David was excused at absent and blah, 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 blah. Look at that. Right, or whatever it needs to be.
Right here.
I was looking at Rosa, so I went Spanish. So like, I think there's ways to kind of carve out pieces that will help the chair and fulfill the officers at the same time. So like, looks like I do, I give you the yin and the yang.
Okay, thank you, Angel. I think that's like an example of something that could be taken to the bylaws committee. For that, as an example, that's one I would say, take that over there to where it can actually be thought out, compared. Nelson's got a lot of work on her plate. I'm not gonna add more to it, but I think looking at other community board bylaws, and how they assign the chair responsibilities, and Angel, I think you can attest, I show up to a lot of stuff and every chair works differently. Sometimes they delegate. I think remind me, Angel, that, some chairs are just delegated for you to attend stuff on behalf of other teams do the same, but I try to show up to as much as possible, and you see that in the reports every month. So I think that's, yeah. So,
Well, with that said, I think that I think everyone who goes to a meeting and goes on a board, an external board should bring back a written report. We talked about that, and it should be given out. And just in terms of just something for you maybe to add to your, just the questions to the legal department, right? If there's nothing to preclude, let's say I'm running for city council and I'm the chair of the board. If the board wants to write something in their bylaws that states to feel comfortable so that they don't feel that someone just has a conflict of interest, let's say, to stop the public from thinking there's a conflict of interest. Is there something that the board, the chair can still be for purposes of running, is still on the board, is chair, but the vice chair, so let's say if I'm running for 2 months, right? And I'm running for city council, I don't win, but I'm running for city council, and let's say Michelle is my vice chair, that for those 2 months, I can fully concentrate on what I'm doing. Still be part of the board in consultation with Michelle, where she's stepping up, let's say, and doing stuff. She still has to meet with me, right? Even though she's the one that's carrying out the actions and stuff, and in consultation with me, then drive for that period of time, so that I'm free to do what I have to do. I don't know if that's something to consider or not, but you know, based on the conversations that were being with you.
I will take the example.
Not to summarize everything that we say.
So it's,
Yes.
Neil said, thank you, I'll take that as a question in general, but it was noted the other one was struck. So what I recommend is that when we reconvene, we pull those items that we think are something we can push forward right now that are immediate fires that would have to go be put out. And then the rest is going to get referred to the bylaws committee, bylaws and charter committee. Again, so that's where we're going to leave this, so we will have a discussion on those items and debate those items, which would be included or not, this subsequently. Notwithstanding that, they then will go to the bylaws committee. Forward, so, Michelle.
Might just add that, if we can send out a letter, an email with. Yeah,
Yeah.
okay. To have, an email sent out saying that we are thinking, no, not thinking, that we are going to be putting a bylaw committee together. And this is what it would entail. Ponder about, are you interested in this? So that it'll give the whole board a longer period
And
of
it
time.
gets the full board,
Yeah,
with the full board is next Tuesday. I can work.
Yeah. yeah, I know it's a lot, but
Just a notification.
so people can start thinking about it, and because sometimes it takes people a long time to just get to a certain point.
When I'm outside here, last thing I look at is his notifications.
Okay. Just putting it out there.
Thanks.
I read emails. Only
You want those things down, or you want it
If
to
there's
sound
no,
good?
if there's
A lot
no
of
other
things
comments
sound
and
good.
questions, I'll entertain the motion to adjourn.
ASAP.
Rosa, second, what?
It has an announcement that I responded to me for 10, Echo Dev meetings that they had this month, and, I presented about what we do here in Echo Dev. They reviewed their presentation and stuff, and the only thing that I saw that I really liked about that committee was that they were really involved with the arts and culture, and I think that area.
You invite them to come to ours?
Yes.
Excellent.
Bring the heart out.
Second by, to adjourn, second by Michelle, all those in favor?
Hi.
Opposed? Extensions.
Literally. How far you live? Wait.
Angel, do you want to call the roll?
He president.
Jose Altamirano,
Yes, you bet.
Dan Brija, Rosa Diaz, Jessica Elliott, Nelson Rama, Andrew Rodriguez, Jefferson Thiago, Isaac Scott, Anne Marie Vasquez, Jason Villanueva, Michelle Wilcher-Klein.
Present.
Thank you.
Damn.
I was just proud of him. Them, 'cause I guess